Welcome, everybody. Happy Saturday afternoon, morning, depending on where you're at, I guess. Welcome. We're excited to have everybody. We got a great webinar set up with Zach and Ryan. They're going to be going over the underwriting template with us. It's going to be very beneficial. We know we usually have this scheduled out for 3 hours, but instead of doing this once a year, I guess Ryan just explained this to Zach and I. So I don't know if he wants to explain it, but I can go over it. Do you want to explain it, Ryan? Would you rather me do the rundown?
Yeah, no, first of all, welcome guys. I think the biggest thing is this, one of the biggest things in this industry is underwriting, right? Understanding how to underwrite a deal once you get it from a broker, how to make quick decisions, and then how to make deals work, right? How to look at the long-term, yearly performances, how to add in the value adds, what numbers can we kind of change to make a deal work? So that's kind of what we're going to explain today. One of the things that, that we got, from people is like, hey, can we do this more frequently? Can we actually get case studies, and actual deals and go through them frequently rather than just explaining certain things? So what we're going to do is this class was originally scheduled for once or twice a year. We're actually going to do every other week now, where Zach's truly right there, sitting there drinking on his drink, is going to do every other Thursday. He will do underwriting with us. So if you guys have some case studies, you have personal examples you want him to share, if you have a deal maybe that didn't work that you want to go over as a group, then then that's what we'll do. So we want to do it more frequently with you guys rather than doing a full on out advanced underwriting just once or twice a year. So we're excited to be on here, excited to go over a deal that we just passed on. I wouldn't say we passed on. I guess we lost call for offer, Zach, huh? So courtyards, right? So we're going to kind of explain why we lost it. A learning lesson that we can teach you guys what to look out for and just better relationships with brokers. So we're excited to do this, and hopefully that explains it, Jackson. Hey, I do want to show you. Yeah. I see Kim McCall on here. Kim, I don't know if you can see it. I have a 24-ounce monster here. So I came ready.
Prepared.
Hey, you can just switch to Zevia. That's what I drink now. It's sugar-free.
I love it.
Free? I worry about their heart. That's all.
Yeah, it's sugar-free, guys. It's sugar-free. I went to Hawaii for a planning session 5 weeks ago, and I've lost 20 pounds.
You look
good.
I did notice on the Zoom video. I can notice. Looking good.
Yeah. Hey, 5 weeks later and 3 new dates later. So there we go. All right. So
awesome. Well, let's get rolling. Let's get going on this. I know everybody has Saturdays. We're going to run through this stuff for you guys. I know what Zach has prepared, and I'm really excited for everybody to hear it. So, also, let's make sure we're using the chat. If you guys have questions, throw chats up in. Zach and Ryan will be looking at that often. If they do get missed, though, I'll make sure to let them know. So throw your questions up in the chat. Also, let's make sure we have our mics off. That way it's not distracting everybody. But let's go ahead and get into it. I'll turn the time over to Zach and Ryan. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Really quick. So I just want to let you guys know, as you guys get into the path, there's a 4-week foundational course, document library, there's video libraries, there's the acquisition process is coming out. So we've created just an underwriting area for you guys to get into. In that area, you're going to see as we update the templates, that'll go in there. There's going to be definitions in there, maybe different videos. A lot of you guys have questions on like what's gross potential rent, what's cash on cash. So we'll actually have articles and stuff like that you can go to specifically only underwriting. You don't have to go into the path and dive into it. That was actually our dear friend Amanda who recommended that. So she's one of our coaches, and we did it. So that should be coming out this next week.
We're very excited about that. I know Melissa's been working hard at that with Rebecca. So we're excited. We're excited about launching that for sure.
All right. Well, let's dive into this. So first off, thanks for everyone being on here. I'm super excited, especially to go through this on a Saturday. So thanks for taking some time out of your day. I know this is going to really benefit you guys going forward, and really help you underwrite deals a lot better and understand how to. So last week, I'm sure a lot of you were on a call that we had. We kind of went into the quick and dirty of underwriting, or what you need before you underwrite. I'm going to go over that PDF again. We'll go over it just a little bit quicker this time. And so everyone else that's new on this call understands this PDF moving forward. And then we'll dive into a deal, go through their financials, and then go through the underwriting template as well. So let me share my screen with you. Oh, Jackson, you want to let me share my screen?
Hey, so as he's sharing that screen, guys, we want to make sure very clear. Underwriting is a very important step. We don't want to just go through it and not have you guys interject, right? If you don't ask questions, whose fault is that, right? It's you guys. We want this to be an interactive process today. So if you do have questions, stop us. Let us explain. Don't just wait. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. So you can take off your mute button, or you can put it into the chat area.
All right. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah. All right. Cool. Yep. So what is needed to underwrite a deal first off? So this is before you even look into the numbers, the financials. You gotta make sure it checks your criteria first off. So let's dive into this. I think I'm on the wrong page. Let's see. Nope, that's right. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
this
So
is
hey
the
guys,
first-
if we go through this pretty quick, it's because we went through this about a week ago, and so we're gonna actually go through this one pretty quick here. A lot of you guys have the PDF already, so this may be review for some of you, but we're gonna go through this super fast again and then dive right into courtyards.
Yeah, and before we do that, if anybody that wasn't on that last webinar where we went over this PDF, shoot me an email. Shoot me an email, Jackson at the Multifamily Mindset, and I'll make sure that you guys get the PDF as well as the replay of the one where Zach went into this PDF deeply. So yeah, hit me up, send me an email, and I'll make sure you guys get that replay for sure.
Awesome. So let's dive into this. So what is need to underwrite a deal? Let me zoom in so you can see it. So pre-screening a deal. This is right when the deal comes into your mailbox or you come across a deal. First question, does the deal fit your criteria? Is it the amount of units that you want? Is it in the right location? How's the purchase price? Is it too expensive? Especially there in Texas, you're finding a lot of properties that are $100,000+ a door. And then we have a student closing a deal in Oklahoma that's $45,000 store. So, it's a big difference. And then the class of the property. What are you looking for? Are you looking for B class, C class, A class? That's all your criteria that you need to figure out kind of right at the beginning, kind of through week 1, week 2. That's when you're figuring out what your criteria is before you start looking at deals. Then second is the deal in one of your pre-selected markets? This one, I know Tyler goes into it in the end of week 1, market research, finding what markets you're in. So if the deal comes across your table and it's in a completely different market than your selected ones, are you going to take your time to look at it? Because you have to do your market research too. So most likely you just skip on it or find someone else that is in that market. Third question, it goes to the market research as well. Is that market growing? Do you know the different aspects of that market? Fourth one is, how is the neighborhood? So not alone just the market. You have a lot of those submarkets. You have the little neighborhoods. They're all different. Dallas is a huge city, and there's so many different parts to different neighborhoods in Dallas that one place you would want to live in, and another neighborhood across the street you wouldn't want to go near. So understanding how that neighborhood is too. So getting down to the nitty gritty of where that property actually sits is really important. We were actually looking at a deal with some students, and the seller wanted top dollar for this property because there's one like a half a mile down the road that was selling for about the same price per door. And so he wanted that same price. However, that half mile difference took that building out of the number one school, district or that school zone. So it's a different value to that property just because of where the school boundaries are too. And so we were just like, no, it's not worth it right there. It's a different value. It's a different neighborhood. So how's the neighborhood? Is it an A, B, C class? What's is the property located in a path of progress? Is that area improving? Are the surrounding neighborhoods better or worse? You could find a neighborhood that's maybe a C or B, but the surrounding neighborhoods are, D areas. So it's kind of hard to keep improving that area when all around you is not doing very well. And then are the surrounding properties adding value? This one's really important. If those properties aren't adding value, it's sometimes hard to be that first one to start adding value and have a better tenant base because the surrounding properties aren't trying to improve. Then
really quick,
go for it.
Really quick, I'm gonna jump in here. Yeah. So some of those areas you guys want to know if they're good areas, what's going on in those areas. So write these down. So you've got areavibes.com, neighborhoodscout.com. I use bestplaces.net. Tyler uses niche.com, niche.com. So we kind of combined, our efforts there. And then there's city-data.com. This is areas you can find like what's going on in those areas. So make sure you write those down, just so you know what's going on in specific neighborhoods.
Very good. Yes. You usually see other people talk.
Yeah, those are all very valuable resources to use when you're doing your market research.
Yeah, Alan just said greatschools.org. That's a good one as well.
Yep. Okay. Yep. True.
Awesome. So after you kind of go through those first initial questions, that helps you kind of filter out all the deals before you kind of dive into them, understanding if they fit your criteria and the location and the area. So if they do fit that, then you can move to this next step, which is to start underwriting. But to even start, putting the numbers in the spreadsheet, you need to make sure you answer these questions. So the first off is financials. Do you have I think it's not operating, it's supposed to be offering memorandum. I messed that up. So offering memorandum, the T12 or the rent roll. So offering memorandum is usually the property packet, the kind of the marking that the broker does that contains property information, pictures, some of the financials in there, and some market research. And then sometimes they'll provide different value add options in that property in the offering memorandum. That is optional. You don't have to have that, but it's great because it provides some good information for you to kind of base your initial underwriting off of. But it's not critical. That information you can still get from the broker by just asking simple questions. The second one is the T12 statement. This is the trailing 12 financials. This one is absolutely required. You definitely need this one to even look at a deal and start underwriting it. If you do not have a T12, don't waste your time. There's no way to really analyze the deal. Now, there's alternatives to it. It's just a little bit more work. Sometimes they'll give you just an income or like a profit and loss statement. You can still use that. There's just some alternatives. You have to, different calculations you need to account for, like vacancy and loss to lease that you have to figure out on your own. And then the rent roll. This one is required and optional at the same time. Right off the bat, it's kind of optional. You don't have to have it. But if you start to dig in further to the property and to analyzing the property, you'll need the rent roll to understand how the property is actually performing that day or that month. Second is, what is the story? This one's really important that I think a lot of people miss out on. They don't understand the importance of this part. They just think the numbers are important, but this is really important. You need to figure out, why is the seller selling? What's the history of the property? Has there been any major renovations? Have there been any major problems to the that's happened to the property? Or how long have the sellers owned the property? Are they, is it a mom and pop owned? They've had it for a very long time, or is it another syndication group that's only had it for a few years? And then any other information that would be important. This will help you find the solution to the problem of the seller, and it'll help you be able to kind of close the deal and figure out the best way to analyze it as well. So we'll move to step 3. What value add opportunities are there? Probably one of the most important parts as we are value add multifamily investors. You understand if it's below market rent, by how much per unit. How is this determined? Is it just information from the broker, or is it from your own research? I think both are really important. Understand what the broker says and understand the market as well. Understand that market rent and you need to understand that area so you know how much you can actually raise rent. Then also understanding, do units need to be renovated? How many units have already been renovated? A lot of times we'll get into properties and they'll probably be like 20% renovated. That's important to note because you're not going to go in and renovate that 20% they already did unless it's needed. And then what are those unit premiums? So if they have renovated some units, what premiums are they achieving? Or if they haven't, what could you achieve based on the market on similar properties? And then how much work is needed? How much do you need to budget to renovate each unit? Then also, can you implement a RUB system, a utility bill back? Are properties doing that around you? That's a good value add option. Any extra amenities that you can add, like increasing the pet fee, leasing out washer and dryers. There's a lot of options there. Exterior renovations, you need to do a full kind of facelift or just a little touch-ups here and there. And then any other value add opportunities. There's a lot out there.
So, hey, I want to jump in real quick, Zach, here is, on the value adds, guys, when you're looking at like market rents, renovated units and stuff like that, I think it's very important to touch base on this. And we'll actually go over in our case study that we're going to do. I've seen a lot of students who they'll look at just the rent, per square foot, and they don't look at the comps in the area. So they don't look like Renometer, they don't get on apartments.com, they don't do some of those research. We call those competitive market analysis. So the thing is, if you're at the top of your market, right, and you're doing comps, and let's say, for example, you could charge $1,000 for rent, and you're already at 1,000, but your rent per square foot is less, or you can only go to the top of that market. Does that make sense? Just because you're below rent per square foot, you have to look and identify, can I go a little bit higher than that? So if you're already maxed out and the only thing is rent per square foot is a little less, you have to really identify that. And that's really where you're going to get on, the horn with Zach or myself and, and go over those numbers. Because if you're only going off rent per square foot and that's it, you could run into problems, right? It could completely ruin your business plan. And that's the last thing we want to see you guys do, right? So you'll be able to identify that. An example I would give you is, let's say that you're $900 and the top, comparable is 1,000. We're $100 under market rent. Right now, can we push that? Yeah, we can push that, but you want to make sure you get with a property management company and discuss that first before we submit offers. Does that make sense, guys? All right. I think that's maybe a common mistake that you see, Zach, right? Is it's only based off of rent per square foot, not just, where the comps in the market are.
Yeah, of course. Definitely. That happens a lot. I think we have some questions in here that I want to answer real quick. First one I see is Brett's question of what kind of info do you ask if it's an off-market deal with no offering memorandum. Essentially, it's these questions that are in this PDF. I mean, this is the information you need to know. So, ask these questions. It's understanding all these questions is basically what you need to ask the broker. So if it's not in the OM, they haven't provided you this information, just go through this and see what you don't have. That's essentially kind of what this PDF is for, is making sure you have the right information. Is there any other questions on here that haven't been answered?
It says, Brett just asked, is it better to get market comps off the internet search or calling other properties? As Tyler says, yes and yes, right? It is, we go to, apartments.com is who we use, because that's who our management companies use. We do a lot based off that. We call as potential tenants as well. You can get flyers from different, I usually go like a 5 mile radius. I know other people go 2-3 mile radius. I try to see as many different flyers for the age group or class of property that we're looking at. So, that's what, especially what we do in the Carolinas, we've had a lot of success there, but we know that we're extremely aggressive also. So we're doing CMAs every single month. So competitive market analysis, we're doing every single month. We want to make sure that we're pushing rents. So, obviously you got to be in a market too that allows you to push rents. If you're in California, there's just no pushing rents there, right? I mean, obviously they have their rules and regulations, so it's more of a tenant friendly area. So you have to know who your management company is.
Build a balloon and go around the world in it.
Awesome. We'll go into step 4, which is the market knowledge. This is kind of just going back to what we've been talking about, is understanding that market knowledge, getting that CMA report. What are similar properties charging for rent? What type of amenities? Any other value add opportunities? So market knowledge is very important when analyzing a deal.
They are demanding. They have very high standards.
Awesome. And then the last part of this is, I hope you guys understand, like, we're going to do these trainings every other week and stuff, but when you guys have deals and you're underwriting them, I'm here to help you guys. If you have questions of, why the property looks the way it does, why doesn't the numbers work out, we can definitely get on calls and do that. But the information I need from you guys is right here. These must-haves is market knowledge, because I'll ask you the questions about that market, that neighborhood, because you need to understand if it is a good market at all. So I know a lot of students already know that from me. They'll send me a deal, and all I send back is questions. How's the market? What are some of the properties doing? What's the market rent? And so that's very important, first off. Second is the T12. You have to have that. Rent roll would be really great to have. And then your own completed underwriting with the most recent version of the template. I'm constantly updating it basically every week. There's some new things that I'm tweaking and updating, so just pay attention for when I do upload it. I will always post on Facebook when I have a new version ready to download. And then value add opportunities. People will send me deals and then ask, why doesn't it work? And I'm like, well, what value add can you do? Can you raise the rent? All they're doing is taking the T12 numbers and plugging it in, and they think, that's not enough. We need all the information you can get. The value add is what makes the deals work for us most of the time. So please have all that, and then you can send me deals, and we can go on calls and walk through it together for sure. All right, well, that's all for this PDF. We can answer some questions, and then we'll move on to a case study.
I think there's a few questions. Let's see here. Megan, you asked, should listing broker be aware off the top of their head of the history of the property? Absolutely. So when we sold our properties off, they're going to ask us a ton of questions. Oh, sorry, I've got my little dog barking here. I said the life of Zoom these days, right? It's crazy, huh? Anyway, but they'll know the history of the property. So when we sold, off some of our properties, they're going to ask you what's going on with the property. Is there anything we need to be aware of? If anyone asks questions, so they go through a list of questions that they'll ask you. They'll go over, what price do you want to sell it at? What price would you settle at? How much, do you really want to get? What's more important to you, EMD? So they go over a list of questions, Megan. So they'll know the whole history of the property. I mean, they don't want to get stuck. If they want a long lasting relationship. So they ask all the questions up front, so they don't have to keep going back and forth. They can sell the property a lot quicker. Brendan, you asked if there's not a listing price, will the broker ask, or will the broker have a whisper price? Absolutely. Sometimes the broker won't give you that number. And why do you guys think that is? They want you to call them, right? They just want to offer that number. The more they can interact with you, sometimes the higher percentage they can sell the property or get qualified people in there.
Definitely, and it also goes back to understand your market. What are similar properties selling per door? That'll kind of give you a base number to base, if the broker hasn't provided a whisper number yet, based off what your market knowledge is.
Awesome. Yeah, I do want to go over this really quick, guys. Zach sent that PDF of what he expects to underwrite and what our coaches do as well. So here's the thing: when we get deals that are off-market deals, typically those will get shopped out for up to a week, right? And so they want quick answers. The thing is if you guys want quick answers from us, right? And from Zach, we need to send the correct information over to him right away, right? Sometimes he may be underwriting a deal. You don't have it. He's got to send it back to you. And guess what? He's underwriting another deal maybe right after that. So not only does he do deals for you guys, he underwrites for MF Capital Partners as well. So, the more information that you can provide to him, the quicker he can get these done for you.
Awesome. So let's kind of dive into this property. It's Courtyard of Roses. Can everyone see this offering memorandum?
Yep.
Awesome. Sweet. So first, I'll kind of just do a quick overview of an offering memorandum and what's in it. And then we'll kind of dive in. I'll probably go over a T12 as well and see what we look for. And then we can open up the template and go through them together. So these ones are really nice. This Marcus and Miller chat provides some really nice offering memorandums that have a really good layout. So I'll just kind of go through it real quick. The reason why I really like these ones, they'll give you what the value add opportunities are on one of the pages. So it's showing there's some substantial monthly premium upgrades when you upgrade the units. You can reduce expenses. You can lease out washer and dryers, installing yards on the first floor, and then doing reserved parking spaces. So this one's really great. It provides information for you. It'll even break out the cost and the value for those. Then obviously some pictures to make you fall in love with the property. Don't do it. Just go through them. Go for it.
Okay. From what I understand is that it's our job as real estate investors to come up with the value add opportunities as we walk properties. And so what I'm kind of I got a little bit confused when the first page came up with the value add opportunities on there already.
Awesome. You want me to answer that, Zach?
Go for it.
Yeah, man. Here's the thing, Jason. I love that question. Is you can see sometimes if they're off-market deals, like completely off-market, the broker may have just shopped it out to his few select individuals he has in the list, right? At that time, they may not have a value add. They may not even have an OM, right? The offering memorandum may not even exist because they haven't put it together. And sometimes we have to go do it. So you may walk the property. You may ask the broker what those value adds are. But a good broker will put this information there. It's just like the property packet that you present to your investors. The more information that you can give your investors, the less questions they ask you. It's the same thing with a broker. The more information they can give you, right, the less questions you're going to ask them. So you'll see qualified brokers. That's one way to separate, to see if they're a good broker or not. They'll put all the information you need so you don't have to blow up their phone, blow up their emails. Brokers that are new don't put this information in a lot of times. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I think so what I'm drawing the conclusion is that it's really a case-by-case basis. You kind of just have to see what information the broker gives you, and then but be prepared to have like a checklist in your mind of what you really need to make an informed decision.
And you can always ask, right? You can always ask, hey, are these what value add opportunities would you do on this property, right? What are not being done currently right now, or what would you do to add other income to this property? Those are good qualifying questions that brokers should know. And it's okay to ask those questions. I mean, I'm very, very blunt. I don't want to waste their time. They don't want to waste my time. So the more questions you can ask on checklists, if it's not there, ask.
Hey, Ryan, this is Chase Waldron. Just to kind of tag along on that. So when we're looking at these, is it safe to say that the value add opportunities that they're listing are pretty accurate and it's not just them trying to sell you the property? I mean, it's pretty safe to say that what they're saying there, they are true value add opportunities.
Yeah, I know the broker on this because this is the deal we put offer offers on. So we were actually part of this deal. So I know this broker personally. He is, he's always going to put it on. So there's not going to be much more past what he put on here that we didn't put in. Most of the time, depending on the broker and the broker relationship, it's going to be in that OM. But there may be a few things that they didn't put in there, and there's always a few things. Some of it too is asking the existing property management company, hey, what would you do to this property? What would you add as far as other income? And they'll give you a list of things. So most of the time, it's pretty accurate, though, Chase.
Okay. Thank you.
This is all real life stuff that happens. It does.
Awesome. So let's just keep kind of skimming through this real quick. It goes into detail on those different value add opportunities, which is great. And then here you kind of have the overview of the property. It's a lot of some of the information you need, how many units it is, the year is built, the rentable square footage, the number of buildings. It also kind of will go into if the tenants are being charged for different utilities or if the owners are responsible for those. So good information right here. And then just kind of going in, and it just kind of goes into detail of the property. There we go. Shows the area, some floor plans. Just some more of the value add. It shows kind of where you can put the extended yards on the first floor. And some of the market research. So they really try to lay it out here, put some comparables in. These comparables you always just have to be wary of. A lot of times, I think we kind of talked about this, is they don't necessarily put actual comparables. They'll put comparables, what they think will help market this property. So they might use ones that are in completely different areas. So it's just, they're not the right comparables. So you always check those with your own research. Then it kind of breaks down the unit mix, and then they put in their kind of their financials. A lot of people will just get the OM and they'll use this. They think this is the financials. This is not the financials. It's the broker's version of the financials. They don't use necessarily a T12. Right here you can see they use actually a T3, which sometimes we can use for certain circumstances. However, I don't trust the broker's numbers because they alter them sometimes. They use just different, they analyze different months, or they just, sometimes they're just different. So I stick to the T12 because I know that's exactly what came from the property, and it's the real numbers. And then they also put in their kind of pro forma of how the property they think will be performing. So take this page with a grain of salt. You can look at it. However, the T12 is the most important when you go to analyze the deal. Then these kind of go into details and all that. So that's essentially the OM. I think we could yeah.
Really quick, I'm going to jump in here, Zach, is a lot of times people ask me, why do they put a T1 or a T3 in? I just want to explain one of the reasons. When you're going to get lending quotes, the lender is going to look at the last 3 months, right? They're going to look at the whole 12 months, but they're going to look specifically at the last 3 months. So as you guys are going in your underwriting deals, a lot of times they're going to look at right now of like where we are on collections. How is the property performing? They may have one good month, the last month. So let's say January, right? Well, let's see, what's today? The 20th. So, we have January numbers right now. So January may be strong. Most of us are going to close in 60 days. So the lender's going to look and say, okay, hey, the last month or the last 2 months has been great. We need to have, 2 or 3 more good months to show it. Or we need another 1 or 2 months to get those numbers up. We call them proceeds. But so that's why brokers will put in like a T1. I've seen a lot of that right now. Or they'll put in like T3s. So it's important to know that the reason they're putting in T3s is because the previous numbers probably weren't as good. And that's the number they're going to go off of. So someone asked earlier in the chat, if it's a T3, what do? You just take the average, right? And you annualize it and you take it over 12. So he can show you right here on this.
Yeah, so I think there's a question about what is a T12. This is a T12. This is the trailing 12 months of how the property's been performing, all the income and all the expenses for the past 12 months. The key to the T12 is being able to understand the trends that the property is going through, and figuring out if there is problems to solve, or if the property's been doing well. You'll especially notice a lot of properties with COVID hitting the beginning of last year. A lot of the properties, their collections or their rent was down a bunch. So sometimes that hurts your T12 numbers, but that's something to understand. If it is being hurt, then you can probably look towards the T3 and use that. So it's just analyzing this T12 to understand how the property's been performing, and if there's anything that major that's happened or different trends that seem kind of odd. That's kind of the goal with the T12. So we'll go through this.
Can I ask a question really quick?
Yeah.
So it's important though, if just the T3 is stronger than the T12, that's going to affect when you go to get financing for the deal, right? You could, if only the T3 is strong, it might not conform, to be sold on the secondary market. So your LTV is going to be lower. You're going to have to come in with more on the deal, right? 28, 30%.
Yeah. So I was just actually talking to a lender just the other day, and what they look at is they mainly just look at the T3. That's like Ryan was saying, they want to see how the property has been performing most recently, and that's what they lend off of. So for us as investors, we use the T12 because we want to understand any of the trends, if there's any other underlying problems that have happened within the past 12 months. That's why we kind of use that. But lenders, they do kind of just stick to a T3 to understand how the property's been performing recently.
Okay,
correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan.
Yeah, your LTV is going to be based on, Alan, on more of your debt coverage ratio, right? And so they're going to look at the last 3 months and see your debt coverage ratio on that, and that's going to determine, more your LTV. Also, the market that you're in. So for example, like you just said, secondary markets, it's going to be, typically around 75. Whereas if you go into a big primary market, like a Dallas market, you can get up to 80% LTV. So, so it's more based off that. So they're really going to look at the 3 months. If it's a little low, they'll tell you, hey, you've got to get it up. So like when you're doing your LOI and you're going to submit that, you want to put that we call carve out. You want to put that in that they have to maintain collections where they're at. If they dip below, then you can get your money back after, PSA. So you want to make sure that language is in there, that they know they have to keep numbers where they're at. Otherwise, it's going to affect your loan proceeds.
Cool. Thank you for answering that for me.
I love your setup, Alan, man. I need to get that. My boy, we got to get Tyler that.
Yeah, I'll get you hooked up.
All right.
Hey, so I wanted to add something to that real quick. In some cases that if the T3 does not look good, that may just squash the deal entirely. But that also just, if you really like the location, the property, that's a temporary situation. So that if the seller's motivated, that could give you some additional ammunition to go back and negotiate. And also, maybe look outside of traditional agency lending, so that, there's other ways to get it done.
Awesome.
And I love that. Yeah, there's definitely more ways to get a deal, right, and get loans on it. So it's we can go over that too. I know that we had 2 weeks ago we had was it last month we had Daryl Bukides on. So if you guys haven't reached out to Daryl Bukides, he's an amazing lender. I know that Kim, you and the gals Kayla and Frankie have been reaching out to him, so he can get you guys answers.
Definitely. So let's kind of walk through this real quick. So with the T12, you have good T12s will have the gross potential rent, which includes the market rent and their loss to lease.
Zach, will you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thanks, sir.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So they'll most likely provide the market rent, and that market rent is them saying what they think that they could be achieving if they were charging market rent for their property. And the loss to lease is saying how much they're potentially losing because they're not charging market rent on all their units. So this one's pretty good. There's not a whole bunch right there, but as we can see here, it's kind of there's these 3 months are positive numbers, so it almost seems like they have been charging. They're charging more than market rent, according to their understanding. Then after that, so those two numbers, when you calculate those out, that'll give you the gross scheduled rent.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jason.
I noticed that in March of 2020, you have $7,559. And then in April, you have a negative $7,372. Why is that?
Yeah, so that's what I was just explaining. That's a great question. Is these months, they're probably charging more than market rent. So they're achieving more than what the market at the time was set at. And then the negative numbers are they're charging less than market rent on their properties.
Hey, Zach, I had a question on that loss to lease for you.
Yeah, Dennis?
Yeah, so on that loss to lease, is that based off the average or is that based off of the absolute high in the market?
That's a great question. Ryan, could you answer that one?
So will you repeat the question there, Dennis? My little boy, I just ordered up an Oculus Rift for him, virtual reality. He's sitting out for the Amazon guy right now. Whatever you got to do to keep your kids busy, So sorry about that. Go ahead and ask that question.
No, you're good. So that loss to lease, is that based off of the market average? So like I use Renometer, for example. So is it based off the average, or is it based off the median, or is it based off the high?
So in this instant, it's based off of what the management determines based off their CMA, right? So what is their competitors in that area renting out for? It's also based off of what you set, right, as the owner, okay? So I'm going to tell you this, man. This is a point right here we can touch on and stay on for just a little bit is, as you guys are asset managers, right? This is, we've owned this property now and we're looking at it. You can see the first 3 months, January, February, March, and they're above market. A lot of times, the management company will set a budget for the year and they'll stay to their budget because they look good, right? They're above market, man. Why not? They're hitting, a lot of times we put bonuses out there for them. But it's up to us as asset managers to get them to reevaluate what the gross potential rent is. So right here, I'm assuming that in March, they saw that they were going up, and they reassessed, hey, listen, we've got to charge more now. We're not charging enough. And that's what you have to look at as asset managers is when to start charging more, when to start pushing the market. The previous example that I gave at $1,000, you may say, great, let's push them to 1,100, and see what we can do, and so we're going to reevaluate that gross potential rent up there. And you can see they readjusted it for the year.
And so my understanding is that loss to lease is somewhat subjective and also based on your own experience within your own property as well.
100%. 100%. So out of you and Daryl, who's doing the asset management?
Well, that would be Jay. Dar's going to help
Jay's gonna be doing
immensely, but
Yep.
probably myself.
So you and Jay would be looking at these numbers to identify, right? So you'd be looking to identify what can we push rent to, right? Let's set the new gross potential rent at this, and we want an achievable number, right? Which is going to take, like in April, you saw that negative number go right there, and then each month that number's gone down. Why? It's because they continue to push rents. So that number should come down each month if your management company is doing what they're supposed to.
Absolutely. Thank you for answering that.
Yep.
Great questions, guys. And to kind of dive in,
I'm sorry, I'm
Go for it.
still just a little bit confused. So what would cause it to go in March from a positive to April almost an equivalent negative?
so let's look at, I wanted to dive into that. So we can see right here, this is kind of what they originally thought at the beginning of the year, what market rent was, $202,000. Then they readjusted, like Ryan said, they readjusted and they moved up to $215,000 of saying that's what market rent is. So that difference kind of just flipped this to negative because they readjusted what market rent would actually be.
Thank you.
So that's EMA, Zach or Ryan. That's performed on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, reevaluating this on a quarterly strategy. Just wanted a little more clarification on that.
Well, you can see for the gross potential rent right there, they've had it for almost like they've implemented it for 6 months. And it looks like after 6 months, they redid it in October, right? So they went up just a little bit, percent wise on that. Looks like 1 or 2% there. So that's the number that it went up. You want to reevaluate, every 3 to 6 months and see where you're at. But that's what they've done on this specific property. Right? We want to push. So I'll tell you this. So in November, we took over a property, Tropical Ridge. It's in Columbia, South Carolina. So it was interesting. The rents, we knew that we could push rents $250 on this property. So the management company there, the on-site manager, we kept her, and she interviewed great, and we thought it'd be awesome. So she came in and she was like, "Look, man, we're raising rents $50." Well, to some people, they may think like an on-site manager, they thought $50 is great. And we're like, what the hell are you guys doing? No, you're going to go up. So actually, we took the next 4 units and we raised rents $250. We had to upgrade the units, but we raised it. So management companies are only going to do what you tell them to do, right? So you have to keep a close eye on these numbers. Gross potential rent, guys, the more we can push it based off of the value adds that you implement. And this is what Zach will tell you. Value adds are so important because those will play into, gross potential rent, So you've got to push your management companies to do what you guys want. If not, guess what? That number right there in January, February, March, they stay right around 202,000. Think about what this does to your business plan. The quicker you can do this, the quicker you can raise your gross potential rent and raise rents to your tenants, the quicker that you can sell the property in the future, right? So we may have a 5-year business plan, but we could sell in 3 years if we push that gross potential rent up every 6 months. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So whenever we're doing,
I have a question too. Why are you and your wife not in the same room?
Because we can't share a screen.
Sorry,
we're in the same house. That's going to have to do.
There you go.
Hey, quick question, Zach. Whenever we're doing underwriting, so I use Rent-O-Meter whenever I'm looking at market rents and for the value adds. And to Dennis's point, Rent-O-Meter gives you, the average market rent, the median market rent, the low and the high. So I've been using the median because it takes from, within 3 miles, usually 6 or 8 different properties. And I've been using the median as the market rent whenever we do underwriting. Is that the right one we should be using, or should we be using the average? My concern is that if we have an outlier in the average, then that's not going to give us a good, accurate read. So that's why I've been using the median. So I'm curious where you come out on that.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think you're right to kind of take the median. I think that's a good, safe call. Because you're right, there could be some outliers, and then my worry is some of the maybe that more A-class properties are charging quite a bit more, and we're kind of looking for those C-class properties. So I think that the average or the median one that you take from is probably the best one.
Yeah, I found in my underwriting oftentimes the median might be higher than the average, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
I use Rent-O-Meter, so I take the more conservative of the two when I do my underwriting. But that's just.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Let's keep going through this so we can get into the actual underwriting of the deal. So we'll kind of go through this kind of quickly because we'll come right back to the T12 when we're inputting the numbers. So I'll kind of just go through this a little bit more quickly. So we got over the gross scheduled rent. Then we have the vacancy, the bad debt. They even have it categorized for virus bad debt for COVID, and then concessions. After that, that's our total rental income. Then we move into the other income. This part, you will need to look through all these categories right here to understand what's in there, because we can recategorize some of it. So we got cable income, furniture, light charges, laundry, miscellaneous, some fees, some recovery of the bad debt. Then right here is really important, utility income and utility billing processing fee. Those two we can take out for the utility reimbursement, which is on the template. There's a section for it. So these two need to be taken out from just all other income, and we recategorize it for utility reimbursement. So pay attention to that when you see other income. Other than that, everything looks pretty good. Sometimes they'll have the utility kind of divided out even further to water, sewage, trash. So when they do, make sure you take all those and add them up. So to do that, we'll do that real quick so we have it ready for when we underwrite. So I'll just calm down all the way to the end, and we have these two numbers. So I just go off to the side, and I use Excel, and I just add them together. And then I have this number, so it's ready for me. I'll sometimes even label it as utility. And then
hey Zach, really quick,
go for it.
Really quick. We had a question above, like on raising rents. Cindy asked this question. Raising rents on people that are in leases. So if they're in a lease, we have to wait for that lease to end, right, before we renew them and increase their rents. One of the things is you guys are underwriting and you're creating a business plan, right? If we're going to hold this for 3, 4, or 5 years, one of the mistakes I see most students make is they don't look at the rent rolls, and they don't look at lease renewals or lease terminations. Those are some of the biggest things. I break them down to monthly numbers. Now, this is not in your initial underwriting. This is as you get into a deep dive underwriting. You want to look at those rents and when are they going to terminate. That way you can know how quickly can you raise those rents. You'll notice on the new template that Zach did, he'll show in each year what the percent increase is, whether it's 33% of the units, 50% of the units. But, Cindy, it's important to know on those. Let's say that you have 100 units and 40 of those units you can't renew for 8 months. Well, that business plan is 8 months out, right, on 40% of those units. So it may take you, as you talk to your investors, it may take you 18 months to implement your true business plan of increasing all those units. So I always go over monthly numbers on lease renewals on a property. Hopefully that answers your question. But if you don't look at lease renewals and you're trying to implement a business plan, a lot of people say, well, how long do I hold a property for? Do I hold it for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Well, that first year is crucial. We call it a stabilization period in the first 12 months. But you have to identify some of those value adds and when can you implement those. And Zach's done a great job at adding, the 3 years on the template now to where you guys can put percentages in. If you don't understand that, get with Zach on your underwriting. He can walk that through with you guys. You can't put 100% increases in the first year. You can't. And we see new students do that I'll laugh at it, Zach, but you see that quite a bit, right? At acquisition, you guys want to put everything in an acquisition. So.
Yeah, definitely needs a game plan that kind of gets divided up into a couple of years.
Awesome. Perfect. Sorry about that, Zach.
No, that's good. So let me just finish this part right here. So since we're taking out the utility income, we need to come here to the total other income, and we got to take out that utility amount. So I just go in, equal sign, take that number, that 409,000 minus, I come over here and click utility and enter, and then that's my new other income number. So we won't use that 409,000, we'll use this 109,000 in the template. So that's set aside for us, it's ready to go. We'll go down further now. We'll zoom in some more so we can all see it. And we have administration expenses. So now we're going into all of our operating expenses. So there's admin expenses. This all looks pretty good. Seems like it would be under admin. So that's good. We got our management fee. This is set aside, which is good. Sometimes you'll find the management fee inside the repairs and maintenance, or sometimes it'll be in the admin fee. So we got to figure out where that management fee is. That's your property management fee. Then we dive into payroll. This one's split up into different payroll sections. It has your admin payroll and then repairs and maintenance payroll. We just need one payroll number, and that's just right here, the total payroll. So we'll take that. That's all the way at the end. Sometimes also in the payroll section, they might have contracted services. So where they contracted out to get some work done, it might fall under payroll. We would like to take that out and divide that and put it into our contract services item in the template. Then marketing and retention. This one, is pretty self-explanatory. It goes in the marketing section. It's all good. repairs and maintenance. Here, this one, usually you need to kind of go through and pick it apart. We already have some of these highlighted just to kind of separate them. When we were going through this, the alarms and service / maintenance, fire and safety, landscape contract, those are 3 contract services. So those we need to take out of the repairs and maintenance category, and that's going to be the contract services. One way you can know is when they have contract right after it, so landscape contract, and then it's just understanding those different items. Fire and safety, usually your property management company won't handle that. You'll have to contract that out, and then installing alarms as well. Then we have our turnover. A lot of T12s will have this separated out, your turnover, your maintenance expense. We categorize this under repairs and maintenance. So what you'll need to do is just add it to repairs and maintenance. So let's actually go over, I forgot to separate the contract services out. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to add that one, and the one up here. And so my contract services are separated. And then I'm going to subtract the contract services out of the repairs and maintenance. And now I'm actually going to add in the turnover. So our repairs and maintenance plus the turnover, that's our, I gotta make this bigger. That's our total repairs and maintenance.
I think right here, Zach, is some people may ask, why are you taking them out? Why are you not just leaving them and throwing those numbers into the seller's number and just making up our own numbers?
That's a great question.
I can answer that. So one of the reasons why we take them out, guys, is this: we want to identify, as we go to improve each specific category, whether it's general admin, whether it's repairs and maintenance, whether it's contract services, where can we improve those areas? So if you look at the landscaping, we may be looking for vendors that are cheaper than that, right? So, can we get contract services down? Can we get repairs and maintenance down? So we want to, take each category, like I think we taught you at the class on Saturday when you guys attended and Tyler was teaching. Each category or each expense ratio, we want to make sure we can improve to the best we can. Also, we just started using a property management company. I know some of you guys have reached out to them, but they're Simplify. They're an artificial intelligence. So they pay for payroll, they pay for general, half of general admin, and then they pay for marketing. So we want to separate everything out to know what we would pay for in these areas. So that's why it's so important to separate everything out and get them into the correct category when you're underwriting your side of it.
Exactly. Awesome.
Oh, awesome. Megan just asked a question. Have you started building a vendor list for contract services in various areas? Not only is Zach an unbelievable underwriter, he actually worked for a company called Monarch, 65,000 doors, and that was his primary position, is finding vendors for capital improvement. So you can add something to his plate. If you have questions for vendors and stuff like that, he's laughing there. It's that's what he did. 65,000 units, guys, and this guy ran that area. So if you have questions on that, make sure you reach out to him.
I mean, when it comes down to it, it's just kind of calling them out, calling vendors, and getting pricing for sure when it comes to that. But yeah, let's. The next item is utilities. This one seems pretty simple, and this one's really important to look at. I was just looking with a property, actually with Dennis. We're looking at a property, and we looked at the utilities, and the sewer fees were insane. They were. It was crazy how much they were getting charged for the sewer fees. It came up to like $160,000 for a 130 unit property. So half of this property size, and this one's at 125, and it was half the size, but it was even more expensive. So when we saw that, there was definitely an issue there, something that was maybe going wrong, a problem that we needed to solve. So that was really important because your utility bill is like $300,000 when it probably should be less than $150,000.
Hey, Zach, I have another quick question while you're on this, and it's about utilities. So whenever we use the underwriting template, our expenses automatically calculates utilities for us based on whatever we put into utility costs from the T12. What would be a reasonable expectation or number to put in there, especially if we intend to go in recognizing that the utility bills are probably, at least 50% or 70% higher than they should be? Do we go in and we adjust that number in our underwriting, or what do you think is a reasonable expectation for what number to use? Because that, especially for 150 or 160 unit property, that can make or break a deal.
Yeah, that's a great question. So are you asking like what we can do in the template, or?
Right. What's a reasonable expectation? If you know that the utility bills are high, what do we use? What kind of number or what kind of adjustment would make sense to put in there to help your underwriting in that particular area be as accurate as possible?
That's a great question. Go for it, Ryan.
I was going to say on utilities, that's one thing you always go 1.02 on, right? Whatever their utilities are, their utilities are. Now we can look at their bills and see exactly, what's going wrong with it. Now, I mean, that just could be a value add, right? I mean, I'll give you an example right now. We have some pipes that are busting on our property out in North Carolina. Now this property has, we've paid out distributions from the first quarter on this. It has performed extremely well. We bought it 2 years ago for 7.4. We have a broker trying to sell for 12 million right now. But anyway, the pipes, we have galvanized pipe in there and they're starting to bust, right? And they're starting to break. We've spent 50 grand in the last 6 months on pipes right now. And so our bill is a lot higher. So what Zach was saying to the example with Dennis, those bills are going up. So I know that if I'm coming in to buy a property, those people, they know they're going to add to their capital improvement to fix those pipes, right? Or we're going to give them a credit to fix that. But you always have to go off based off of what the numbers they give you. This is one number where most sellers, they give you the 100% accurate number.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Zach, you may have a different answer, but I mean, I always go off of it. If you can improve it, you can improve it. And you know that after you improve that budget, you're going to use capital improvement to fix it. But you know those expenses are going to come down as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So to go off that, if you know you can improve it, there's companies out there that focus on reducing utility bills, and it usually comes down to either there's some plumbing issues or getting new shower heads and faucets that kind of limit the water usage. They'll give you good estimates of actually what you can actually achieve, how much you can reduce those expenses, and then also how much it's going to cost to implement those. And then I can show you kind of what you can do on the template to account for that utility deduction and cost. You kind of, it's a roundabout way to do it, but you add it to the other income section for a quick answer.
You can also implement a very aggressive rub strategy. That's what we're doing
That as well. Yep.
to recover some of those costs.
Of course. All right. So let's see. I think that's about it for, okay, no, last part, taxes and insurance expenses. So we have our taxes and all of our insurances, and we got to, put those in separate spots. So our taxes and then add up our insurance. So I'll add up our insurance real quick. And there we go. Some T12, you guys will notice, after they go through all the operating expenses and they get to the net operating income, below they'll even put their capital CapEx or capital improvements budget of what they spent as well over the 12 months. That number, it's not necessarily important for running your numbers in the template. However, it's there. They include it in their T12 for record. Any other questions on the T12 before we kind of dive into a deal?
Yeah, let's talk over taxes really quick, Zach. One of the things that we see when people underwrite is they keep the taxes the same as the seller. All right. Now, here's the thing. If depending on where you're at, I'll give you an example. We just, then let me explain first. You need to go to the tax assessor's office to see, what the millage rate is and reassess the taxes based on the new purchase price. You also need to see in that specific county how soon they reassess. Every county is different. So like in North Carolina, they reassess every 7 to 8 years. In South Carolina, it's every 4 years. So you've got to look at the millage rate on that. I'm trying to look at some questions as well and recalculate those numbers. So we just closed on a property in January, and the reason we could have closed in December. The reason we held off from December to January is based on the new reassessment. It would have cost us $90,000 more for 2021 had we closed in December. So that's why it's important. Does a sale of a property trigger a reassessment? Well, in this case, yes, it did. And so we decided to close January 4th instead of closing in the second week in December. So you guys need to make sure you do that. So when you're underwriting your deals, if you know that number, for example, on that deal I'm talking about, it's Rivercrest, we kept taxes the same as the seller through all of 2021, and then going in 2022, we reassessed at a new value, right? So make sure that when you go to Zach, you guys have gone and you've looked at the new millage rate and you've looked to see what the new taxes would be, because that's a number that he would need. All right. Because that's a big difference, guys. On if they're selling for $4 or $5 million from what they purchased it at, or what the previous year was, that could break your deal right there. Taxes are one of the biggest things that will make a deal go south. So
Definitely.
awesome. Oh, also, since we're doing the advanced underwriting, Zach, sorry, I keep interrupting, but you also have to see if they reassess taxes every 2 years, it's reassessed based off the net operating income, right? And so they could reassess it in 2 years. You have to know that. So you would have to, let's say in year 2 is when it's going to be one number. You have to go reassess it in year 4, right? And put in what the new taxes would be based on off the net operating income. That's something that if you knew, you're not going to know how to do. You've got to get with Zach to be able to do that. And that's where a lot of people ask, what is the exit strategy? Sometimes if the exit strategy, you're going to hit the new taxes and have a reassessed tax, you would probably sell it in that 4th year to avoid, those taxes going up. Does that make sense? Awesome. Yep, Frankie, that's correct on that. Yep, this is the tax rate. So millage rate, you have to look at everyone's different. Some of them do it 80 based off of 80%, of the purchase price. Let's see. California has a higher millage rate, but they only assess off of 10%. So it kind of equals out. You may have a higher millage rate, but it may be based off a certain percentage of purchase price. So each state is different. Each county is different. So
Definitely. All right. Should we jump into the underwriting?
Go for it.
All right. Let's do it. Let me open up a new blank underwriting template.
Can I say something about insurance really quick since you went over it?
Yes.
Insurance, to really understand that if you're like overpaying or not, you have to understand your market rates. So I was talking to Nico, and in Texas, I guess a good rule of thumb is like 55 to 65 cents a square foot for the property. But if you're in another area, like let's say like a coastal area, Houston or Florida, your insurance rate will be higher there. So just one thing to remember.
Of course. Thanks for that. Yeah, definitely understand what insurance will be in your area. I know Ryan was saying that in Carolina, their insurance is a lot more expensive, is like upwards of $500. It's kind of like the minimum they could get on insurance. So I definitely got to understand your market.
So along those same lines, how often are you shopping insurance? Are you just shopping it at the beginning or one and done, or do you do it like every other year or what?
Brian,
we use Nico. I mean, Nico's always keeping track of what's best for us, and that's where you can use Nico. You don't have to use Nico. In fact, Jackson, do you mind putting Nico's email in here? I know it's we have it somewhere, but
yeah, I can for sure do that. No big deal.
Yeah, we use Nico for a couple reasons. A, he's been doing it a long time. He's going to get you the best rates out there. I see a lot of times, for example, on a recent deal where people will try to get cheaper insurance, so it's cheaper per door. Well, guess what that means? If you're cheaper per door, right, and you're underinsured, what happens if something happens to the property? It's coming out of your pocket. It's coming out of your capital improvement budget. Your investors are going to be ticked off at you. And so you see a lot of people try to get cheaper insurance just to keep their cost per door down. And guess what? It's every time you're going to see, a fire or something happen, and it ends up coming out of your pocket. So get a good insurance person. Jackson will put his name in here, or his email or contact information. Nico's who we use. I wouldn't use anyone else, but you can shop it as much as you want.
Super easy to work with. Such a great guy. I'm adding it right now to the chat.
Alan, you have some contacts, don't you, for insurance? Someone on this in the network does. Is it you that has it? I could be wrong.
Yeah, I use a guy. There's a guy here in Dallas. He owns a company called Riskwell that they do a ton of multifamily that I'd be willing to let you guys, ping a quote off of. But one thing is when I talk to Nico, so they concentrate primarily on bigger amount of doors, right? So like I think 150 and up is what he touches. But if he can't do it, he has someone he can send it to. So,
yep.
And I would always get two or three quotes. But to go back to what you were talking about insurance wise, is you can be premium driven or you can be coverage driven, and anyone can write you a low premium for no coverage. So you have to understand, what you actually are paying for. And I think Nico's a broker, right? So he shops multiple different.
He shops them out, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the best way. But I mean, once you have more properties under your umbrella, economy of scale, you're going to get, better rates at that point too, So
100%. So ever underinsured. That's one thing I'll tell you guys. I see so many operators out there underinsured, and it bites them in the ass every time. Oh, all
awesome.
right.
So let's dive into this. So step one, property information. Just going to take it off the OM or the information that the broker provided. So courtyard of Roses. Sometimes you can put in, where it's at. I know it's in Texas. Then we got a number of units, which is 224. Now the purchase price, the strike price. Let's see. I think it was, I don't know, Ryan, if you remember this. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I believe it was about
23 million on this one.
23? Okay.
Yep. I'll tell you, we can tell the story in a little bit, but yeah, this one actually sold at 22 million, but they threw a bunch of higher earnest money down. So.
And we'll just kind of stick to like a 5-year hold. Rentable square footage is 191,776. And the property type, Ryan, would you say this was more of a B?
Definitely a B property. Yeah,
property.
It's a B property in a B plus area. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a Las Galinas, which is great. But
and then a 1972 build. All right, so that's just pretty simple stuff. Information you should have right off the bat. And then step 2 is what we need to pull from the T12. So let me pull that up and see if we can look at both of them at the same time. Might be a little tricky, but I don't know if this screen wants me to do it. No, it doesn't want. We'll figure it out. All right. This might be a little tricky to see, but let's try to make it work. All right. So first off, gross potential rent. We have that at the top of this one.
So Clayton just asked, how do we know it was 23 million on this one, Clayton? We talked to the broker on it, and that's what he thought it would go for. So, we offered, I think he said 22.5, but we offered 23 on it. So it was more from the broker telling us.
Awesome. So this one was 2,552,838 for the gross potential rent, and then the loss to lease was 44,000. Then that gives us our gross scheduled rent. We did it right because it's right there. Then our vacancy is, I believe, this next line down. Yep. We're going to put our physical vacancy in, 149,000. And what we need to understand too, I've seen some of this from some students, is they start putting negatives in on the spreadsheet, on the template. Just leave it as a positive number because the template will calculate it as a negative. So the T12 will show negative, just use the actual number. We don't need to worry about negative or positive. Concessions, I believe that one was the last one in this section. Let's just check. Yep, the bottom one for 9,000. 9,639.
Hey, so really quick, as you're putting these numbers, you can keep inputting them if you want, Zach. But to go off the purchase price, one of the things, guys, is to as you're talking to brokers, to identify and know who your seller is. For example, on this property here, it was a Japanese group that came out of they're out of Japan. It's an investment group. So they have actually tax provisions that they get for investing in the U.S. So I believe that if they hold a property for 4 years, they get a certain tax credit. And so they had to sell. So it was important for them for someone to put more EMD down, earnest money deposit. So it's important to know who your seller is. What's more important to them? Is it earnest money? Is it purchase price? A lot of times that, newer students don't ask the broker who the seller is, why they're selling. How many units do they have? Is this their first property? Are they just a mom and pop? If they're a mom and pop, they really don't know, or they think that they're more interested in typically purchase price because they want to get the most out of their property, where established operators or established investors, it's more important for them to have earnest money down. They want to make sure you're not going to back out of the deal.
That's right. So I hope everyone is kind of following along. It's just inputting data. Honestly, it's not a whole lot to this. That's admin payroll, then the total payroll is right down here.
Hey, really quick, we got a question, Zach. Maybe you can explain this too. You can or I can, but as a lot of people ask if vacancy is included in loss to lease.
Vacancy is not included in loss to lease. It's different. Loss to lease is the difference between what is being charged for market rent and what you're charging your tenants. But vacancy is the actual unit that is vacant. How many units are actually vacant, and the income you're losing on for those empty units. And the vacancy is based off of market rent. They'll typically use market rent to base off how much you're losing in income.
Awesome. And Nicole wanted to see if you could go back to the lost bad debt really quick on the T12.
Yes. So that one I had to add up 2 of them because they had it separated out right here. So the 19,000 is just their normal bad debt. And then the 1,500 is their COVID bad debt. As we can see here, bad debt, virus bad debt. So what I did is I just add those two up. I can actually do it right here for you. So that was a 21,264.
I have a question.
Yes, Jason.
Do you mind? I'm sorry but can you review? How you got the 2,552,835 for the gross potential rent?
Yep, that's right here. That's that first number, very first number. I'll scroll over. So it's market rent. It's the very first top number that they provide is market rent.
Okay.
That's your gross potential rent.
But do you have to add up these numbers for each month to get that number?
Yes, but it's provided. Yeah, it's usually provided at the total. Oh, don't happen there. It's usually provided. So yeah, this number is all these is the previous 12 months is all added up to get this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Of course. All right, where were we? We just did payroll. So let's scroll this way. Payroll. Just did that one. Okay, marketing and retention. So total marketing 33,008.
So you guys got to realize when Zach is underwriting these deals, he has his computer, he has another monitor. I have 3 monitors when I underwrite deals. So I have everything pulled up, full screens. It makes it so much easier and so much quicker.
Yes, definitely. I don't know if I could.
So if your role is underwriting, I highly recommend at least a minimum of 2 monitors.
Yes, I agree with that. I don't think I can underwrite on my laptop anymore. It's too small. All right, repairs and maintenance. This is the one where we got to take out the contract services. So we got to pay attention to that. So we'll take out the contract services first, 43,000, and put here. And then the total repairs and maintenance that also we added in the turnover. So that's going to be 113.40. Next so that was a turnover one that we were skipping because we already had that in. Next, I believe is utility. Yep. So we have our utility bill, which was a nice whopping $400,000. And then last is the taxes and insurance. So taxes, 338,720. And then insurance is 114. All right. Now, most times you're not really going to find the asset management in the T12. Sometimes they will provide that. Usually don't. That's okay. And then miscellaneous, if there's any other things that don't fall in this category, which most do. Are any questions there?
No, I did want to make one quick statement though. So I've seen a couple of questions about, what the price might be. If they don't give you a price, you don't have a whisper price. So one of the things I started doing is actually using the NOI after I underwrite all of their income and expenses, and using that divided by whatever the market cap rate is to get to kind of get a ballpark price on what a property is actually worth, and then, compare that to whatever the whisper price is whenever we get it. So that's just a guideline for, what you might expect if you don't have any other number to put into that price block from the very beginning.
Yes, exactly. Ryan, do you know what that market cap rate is?
Which market?
For this property. Oh, was it like a 5.5?
Yeah.
Okay, so it pulls it up here, but if they don't provide you the purchase price, you input these numbers and it gives you the net operating income. If you can figure out what the net operating income is, and what Brett said is you take it, you divide it by the cap rate, which is 0.055, and then it will give us 23 million. So pretty dang close to what the number is.
So that for that asset management number, is there a rule of thumb for that if it's not included in the T12?
No. I mean, I don't usually include it if it's not there. I don't worry about it.
Okay.
Brian, do you usually?
No, I don't. Yeah, some people don't put it because here's the thing. This is a huge topic amongst experienced operators. Is you'll see, and you would do the same thing on it on most of our properties. Asset management is a below line item, meaning it's below the NOI. Why? Because that typically we would pull that out of the capital improvement budget, but we don't want that to affect future sale, right? So we pay us for overseeing the property management company. So you'll see a lot of people, they will not put it into the T12, and if they do, it's going to be more into your extraordinary expenses area. So you can put it in there, but if you're basing your sales price off of NOI, it affects it. So you can do it either way, but most people are going to put it in below the NOI.
So in future ones, I could probably just eliminate this item in future templates, and it will, be okay.
I think you can keep it there because it's like some people will put it in, you can put it in, but at the end of the day, it's really like based off of what our numbers do. So, when we get over to asset management on our side, we'll take a minute and talk about asset management. A lot of people have questions on what to charge, why we charge it, that kind of stuff.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, let's get on over to that. So I'm done with the T12. So let's make this big so you can see it. Awesome. What you'll notice though is some of the numbers have populated up at the top. We got our number of units, our purchase price, our cap rate, which calculated based off of our purchase price, and our NOI down here. We put our hold time in, and then our debt coverage service ratio. This number is pretty important when looking to get financing. 1.2 is pretty good. 1.4 would be ideal though. Well, that's good. So we'll just keep moving forward to step 3, our income and expenses. So this number up top, gross potential rent, it will take the sellers and then it'll add from the value add tab. So we'll get to that in a second. So we don't need to do anything right now. It'll just copy over loss to lease. And so it has our gross scheduled right here. So physical vacancy, we're going to put 8%. Concessions, we don't typically like to give concessions, so we'll just do 0.5%. And then bad debt, we'll play it safe with 3%. Kind of just little rules of thumb based on your market though. So markets can be different on vacancy for sure, and then based on how the property is actually performing. So these numbers, first off, is determines what we think we can achieve the first year of holding that property. Okay. A non-revenue unit, we didn't have any for the seller, so we don't have anything for us either. The in-place utility reimbursement, this number, we don't need to change it. It takes from the seller's number. And then if we do add any more RUBS, it will add to this. And then other income as well will be added to if we decide to add more other income. So we don't have to input those either. Here's the mill rate that we put in, the tax rate. I don't remember what the tax rate was in this area. Ryan, do you remember by chance what that tax rate was?
I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, that's right. If you don't know, it's okay because we'll just take the previous year's taxes, but it's important to eventually get to that. Let's just put in like 2%. All right, there we go. We'll stick with 2%. So we'll raise it up. However, sometimes you'll put in a tax rate and it won't go, your tax rate based off the purchase price isn't more than what the taxes already are. So it won't increase. It'll just stick to the
Zach,
to the
I think
higher
it's 80% of the purchase price times 2.85, I think.
2.85?
I believe so.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. All right. So that increased drastically compared to what it's already at. $200,000 more. So that's a big difference. If we didn't know what that tax rate was and we didn't worry about it, that's $200,000 we weren't accounting for in our expenses.
Is that an oh shit moment?
Oh yeah, that's definitely one. And then we'll kind of go through our rules of thumb here. And these
Wait,
are
Zach.
Yes.
I think that I want to hear you say "oh shit," not Ryan. I've never heard you say "oh shit."
That's
all right. That's all right. I don't need to, Melissa. I can just listen to you guys say it in the office. Maybe one of these days when I get frustrated enough, but probably not. You probably won't hear it from me.
Challenge accepted.
Well, if my computer doesn't get here by next week, you might be hearing it from me, Melissa.
I am looking forward to it, Zach.
Awesome. So with putting in our expenses, we go off per unit. So, and then if you need help with the rules of thumb, just hover over to the side and it'll kind of give you some rules of thumb. So $1,000 to $1,200 for payroll. I always just start out at $1,200, and then repairs and maintenance, $500 to $700. Other thing to consider when doing this is also look over at what the sellers are per unit. So it gives you an idea of how they're kind of operating at the moment per unit, and so we can kind of go off that as well. So we'll put in $500 as well, since we're operating around that. Insurance, this one's based on your market. So you need to understand your market, like we talked about before, is shopping around with insurance and understanding that. Well, they have 500, so we'll just, that's outside, we'll do 500. Management fee, for now, let's do we'll sometimes start, depending on the size of the property, I start with 4 to 5%. The smaller properties, you need a higher rate. So right here, it kind of shows 100 and $200, 3.5, under 100, 4, and under 56. I even play it safer. I go a little bit higher than that. Contract services, they have about 200, so I think that's pretty safe. It's probably 200, and then admin as well. Let's do 200. Asset management.
So I think Brett, you asked earlier on utilities and stuff like that. That applies to contract services as well. Typically, what they have in contract services, we would just want to just move right over, and that's why one of the reasons you want to make sure that everything's categorized correctly. The thing is as you guys get on a deal, if you have a good real estate attorney, if not, you can use ours, Stephanie Roberts or Stephanie Cooper. Same person. She just got married. I call her Stephanie Cooper, but it's Cooper legal firm in North Carolina. Anyway, you'll be able to assume services and pick which services you want to keep or which service contracts you want during your due diligence phase. So like Dennis and Daryl, y'all have a deal right now. It's under contract. These are ones during due diligence. You'll be able to see if you want to keep those or not. But you can typically, a good rule of thumb is just transfer over what their contract services are. Just always make sure to categorize correctly.
Definitely. And then Ryan, do you want to cover the asset management part? Kind of why?
Yeah, so here's one thing. Tyler doesn't go over this in the class a whole lot. And the reason why is when you think acquisition fees and then you think asset management fees, it confuses a lot of people. Asset management fees are what you pay yourself for overseeing, the property manager, right? For getting on weekly phone calls, for going over, monthly financials, for going over what your business plan is, for implementing the capital improvement budget, for making sure that gross potential rent is where it's going to be. So this is a good area where you can pay yourself. So what does the 2% right there work out to be, Zach, on this?
That's a great question. Let's
should be yearly. Let's go to yearly projection tab.
So it shows right. Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I want to see over the 5 years, and it may not calculate.
It won't calculate yet.
No. Oh, there it is, right there. Yep. So look at that, guys. What does that total up over 5 years, Zach?
Oh, wait, right here. Let's see. That totals up to almost 300,000.
All right. So think about this, guys. As you go acquire properties over 5 years, this is another way to make more money, right? You guys are going to be doing a lot of work, being on weekly phone calls. Like Fridays are my busy days. I'm on with property management companies. So is Melissa. This is something you do. Think about this. You acquire 5 properties, let's say over 5 years, 1 property every year. That's 300 5 properties. That'd be 250,000 a year in the first year or whatever in just asset management fees. So think about it. Like, Megan and Brett, I'll call you guys out right now. You guys have Eric, that you're partnered with. So, you split that amongst 3 of you. That's almost 100,000 a year that you're paying yourself to oversee that. That's a good little paycheck. That doesn't include the cash flow that you get for the GP percentage. And that doesn't include, throughout the whole process. So that's the additional money. So this asset management fee is super, super important to put in there. Is that split up over the entire GP team? Great question, Brendan. So I'm selfish. I keep it for myself. Melissa knows that. No, just kidding. I don't. If you're partnering with other people, so like MSCP, we typically take 1%. And then our business partners in the Carolinas, they take 1%. And so this is something that you want to negotiate prior to closing on a deal. We always take 1% because I do all the financials and take a look at that. And then, usually your boots on the ground will take whoever's overseeing that part of it will take the other 1%. So, but if a deal doesn't work, guys, you got to remember this comes out every single year. You can take that number down to 1% to see if a number would work better. But we always start at 2%. So, yeah, that's it, Zach. Perfect.
Awesome. And then marketing, we will put in 150, kind of what they have as well. And miscellaneous, I usually just leave blank unless there's something that I know I'm going to need to spend extra on. Awesome. That gives us our NOI, and then we'll move to step 4, which is the mortgage information. So the assumable loan amount, this is new that I've added because of being a lot of students that have begun deals that where you can assume the loan. And so if you do have that, this is where you're going to input what that loan balance is. Usually when there's an assumable loan, they'll give you what that loan amount is. And so you insert it here. So just for this sake, we'll say they had a loan balance of 18 million. So then it's going to recalculate here, and it's going to show, okay, your down payment is 5 million, which is a 22% down payment. And then your mortgage amount's 18 because that's what you put right here. So this down payment percentage right here isn't, you can change it. It's not going to do anything because your loan assumption kind of takes over that. So that becomes irrelevant at the moment, and then you can move down to here. Typically yep.
Sorry, I just checked the millage rate for that county that I was working with. It's 2.509, sorry.
2.509.
Yeah. But I will send a document to Ryan in the mail. He can show it to you, like how you get it assessed by a tax assessor or get a quote. And I got a quote on a certain number, which was lower than that because this is how you would underwrite it, but you would definitely want to get a quote from, somebody. And the quote was actually lesser than that because they have assessed it for lower value. And for 2001, that would have been the value for tax you would be paying. So it was a little bit lesser than that. So I have that document. I'll email it to Ryan. He can show it to you guys.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, just moving it down that 0.3%, helps a lot. It drops that taxes down. So that's great. Thanks, Jade.
No worries.
So going back to the mortgage, so this isn't assumable, so we'll take that out. But usually when you have an assumable, sometimes your down payment's actually a lot larger because they have quite a bit less of a mortgage amount on it. So for example, what if it was, a $13 million assumable loan? At that point, you have to come up with $10 million for a down payment, which is 43% down. So sometimes those assumable loans don't look that great, especially now with the interest rate so low. It'd be great that we don't have to assume. We can get some new rates. So definitely something that happens with assumables is you have a lot more money to put into the deal. However, if it doesn't have an assumable loan, you just skip that sale and you move on. So we'll just say 25% down, and then we're going to leave at 4%. A lot of times we're actually getting some interest rates under 3%, which is insane, but we'll just say 4%. And then interest only period, that's something you got to find out from a lender. Reach out to Daryl, and he can give you some quotes on different interest only periods and kind of what your plan is as well. And then these two are pretty standard, kind of stay the same. You kind of want to stick to the 10-year term for the loan. I know we do our deals in 5 to 7 years, but to get the best terms or best rates for our deals, we kind of stick to a 10-year term. Awesome. Step 5 is moving into the closing and acquisitions costs. So these numbers are already kind of set in there because they're kind of just rules of thumb to kind of stick with. Closing costs, typically 3%, loan point 1%, and then acquisition fee, you can alter this to what you want. I leave it at 3% for now, and then sometimes I'll change it. I'll raise it up. For this deal, if you were to have like a 5% acquisition fee, that's $1 million. That's pretty nice acquisition fee if you close on this deal. We'll leave it at 3% for now, and then guarantor fee is 1%. To explain the guarantor fee, this is essentially the person that's coming in to sign on the loan to kind of put up, to be held responsible for that. So you usually pay them 1%. This could be your sponsor as well. That will sign on it. So you usually give them at least 1%, and then sometimes even part of the acquisition fee. Frankie asked about the prepayment penalty. That will cover towards the end. It's in the returns tab. It'll kind of cover the prepayment penalty on that. But it's good to understand different loan products will have different prepayment penalties. So it's good to understand that as well. But we'll cover that a little bit later. And then Megan was asking about how does the interest only period come into play? That's a great question. So I think Dennis kind of answered it. It improves your cash flows and returns. Sometimes it can make or break your deal. Exactly what Dennis said. And it does also help your debt coverage service ratio. So we'll come back to that in a second when we're coming back and analyzing the deal and what we can do to alter our returns. Let's get through these inputs so we can get these numbers to populate up here. We gotta make sure all of our inputs are covered. So as we go down, we have capital improvements. This will be covered in the next tab, in the value add tab. And then capital reserves, I typically stick with 350 right now. And then your cap rate at resale. So this is going to be based off what the market cap rate is. Since this deal is pretty good, pretty close to market cap rate, this one will pop up as it's suggested based off our hold time. The rule of thumb is 10 basis points every year that you hold it. So we're buying it at a 5.5. So our exit cap rate after 5 years, we're going to put as a 6 cap rate. And then manager cash flow and equity partner cash flow. So this is your split. The manager cash flow, that is your GP side. As you guys on the GP side will take a 30% split, and then everyone that's bringing in the money, your equity will bring in that 70%.
Hey, really quick, Zach, let's go over a few questions that we have here. Megan asked, and maybe you just went over this. I apologize. My little boy was, he's got to play the Oculus who just came in. So when you're doing for those of you who have kids, you can appreciate that comment, right? It's they don't talk to you if you're not on the phone. When you're on a phone, they all of a sudden they want your attention. So she asked, when you're doing your overall business planning, how does the interest only period come into play? So that's a great question. Think about that. So most loans are going to do 24 to 36 months of interest only, right? So typically, like on the loans we get from CBRE, if it's a 2-year interest only, it's a 7-year term. If it's a 3-year interest only, it's going to be a 10-year term. And you can see right there, Zach, he's got a place in there where it says interest only in months and then terms. So your lender will provide those terms to you, and you just got to redo the underwriting template, and plug those numbers in to see what works best. So think about though, the more interest only that you do, you're not paying down principal. And if you're not paying down principal, what does that do? How does it affect your underwriting? So the more interest only periods you do, sometimes that can boost up your cash on cash, but it may lower your overall returns. right? So it's kind of a game that you have to play a little bit. You've got to put different numbers in. So as a lender gives you those different terms that you do, you have to see really quick. All right, do I want to push up my cash on cash, or do I want to pay principal off quicker? So maybe I do a 1 year interest only and start paying off principal sooner, so that in 5 years the overall return goes up. Does that answer your question, Megan?
So
Looks like you're trying
yes and no. Sorry, I was trying to unmute. So I was just thinking about long-term budget planning. Then do you put in more conservative numbers when you're looking at your overall business plan to compensate for that no interest period?
So that's a great question. So I always do 2 underwriting templates. I know Jay's on the call, and Zach, I'm sure you do as well. So I do, if I know I'm moving forward with the property, I always do an extremely conservative underwriting, right? For investors, we want to be super conservative, right? I may be a little more aggressive in my own underwriting. So what does that mean? With your interest only, it's not going to refer to that. You're stuck at interest only, right? You have to pick what interest only you want to do. But as far as business planning goes, I may change some numbers around. I may be a little more aggressive with certain numbers. But that's the number that I'm going to hold my property management company to, the one I want to be more aggressive to. So let's say that you have annual rate of return of 18 and a total return of, let's see, what's 18 times 5 really quick? I should know that number. 90. So let's say it's 90, but I can be super aggressive and get that to 20, and now I'm at 100, 100% return over 5 years. So I have 2 underwriting templates. One where I'm more aggressive, the other one where I'm super conservative that only my investors are going to see. Does that answer your question a little bit better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The other thing to remember though, when you get into interest only, is sometimes your interest rates will be lower depending on how many, the term years that you have. So it's important to think about. Right now, rates are extremely low. Let's say 3.3. Depending on what kind of loan you get, but right now 3.3 to 3.5. Well, we see what's going on with the government right now and the Treasury, and so we know that probably in 3, 4, 5 years, we know who's in who's in office, and typically those as Democrats are in office, rates go up. And so what happens is. We know that in 4 or 5 years, those rates could be at 5.5% now. So we know if it's a 10-year term, we may do an assumption in 5 years. Zach, you're laughing there. Anyway, I hope I didn't offend anyone, but it's not. It's a real estate thing. Republicans and Democrats are different. But anyway, so that if it's 3.3 right now, you get into that rate, right? That you may do an assumption later on. And if rates are at 5.5%, it could be sexy as hell to sell that property as an assumption at that point. So it's extremely important, if you have questions on that, to get with us in the office to know which term that you want to accept.
Okay.
Right, especially when you're talking about business planning. Yeah. Sorry about that. There's a couple more questions here, Zach. What about the prepayment penalty? Frankly, that comes into the terms as well on prepayment penalty. There's yield maintenance. So that's a whole nother. We could spend 20 minutes on yield maintenance and prepayment penalty. Maybe what we do is we schedule another call, specifically on prepayment penalty. But a lender can tell you pretty quick what your prepayment penalties will be and what makes more sense. So I know, Frankie, I think you've talked to Daryl. He could give you that answer pretty quick. Dennis, interest only improves cash flow. So interest only. So I will correct you on this, Dennis. It can hurt returns though, depending on if you do too many interest only periods. It definitely can make or break certain deals. It definitely can get your DSC, your debt coverage ratio up. All right, Curtis. Sorry, Zach. Do you mind if I just blow through these questions really quick?
Yeah, go for it. I'll be right back. You answer these questions.
Perfect. Hey, you take your little break and I'll answer the questions. All right, a little potty break there, right? Like Tyler, you got a catheter going,
That's right. That's what I am.
That's exactly what he has to do. He shot me a little message and was like, "Hey, I got to go to the bathroom. What do I do?"
Yeah. Awesome. So sponsor, yes. So the sponsor gets some of the acquisition fee and all the guarantor fee. Typically, they get all the guarantor fee, and then the acquisition fee is definitely negotiable. But yeah, everyone on your GP team, sponsor is on the GP team, gets a percentage of acquisition fee. The guarantor fee, man, that is just for them signing on the loan. All right. I think we answered your question there, right, Megan? All right. So, Curtis, this is a great question. So if you're going to be also on a mortgage, or you're going to sign on a loan, which we encourage everyone to sign on a loan to build up your credibility with Fannie and Freddie, do you get some of the guarantor fee as well? Now, that's negotiable, but I'll tell you this, like if you don't have that credibility right now, or if you don't have units, net worth, liquidity, and all that is not being judged off of, would it make sense to get a percentage of that? Typically if you don't have any experience, you're typically not going to get that, especially if you're not accounted for with Fannie and Freddie, you're probably not going to get that guarantor fee. So once you have an established track record and a portfolio, then you can start splitting some of that guarantor fee as well. So we call that co-sponsoring or co-GP, or not co-GP, but co-guarantor, or co-KP is what key principal. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm going to read through these. I think, Brandon, we answered that for you. The guarantor fee goes individual. There you go. All right. Does anyone else have any questions they can shout out as I read through these?
Just with those percentages, Ryan, are those the same percentages if your sponsor is doing all of the upfront monies as well? Or is that different?
Good question. So if they're doing earnest money deposit, they typically would probably add to the acquisition fee or the percent of the GP. So one thing to make it very, very easy, I see so many people that try to split up percentages and GP and all that. The easiest way, guys, to do it is to determine what that GP percentage is. And then you get paid out acquisition fees based off of the GP percentage that you own. So typically when people put up like the earnest money deposit, they would get like 5%. Depending on how big the deal is. If it's only 40,000, it doesn't make sense maybe to give up 5%. So those are all negotiable. But the easiest way is to determine what GP percentage you have and then just pay out on that. Doesn't mean that you can't negotiate that, though. You can always negotiate having them have a lesser, you getting more of an acquisition fee and then them just getting more of cash flow and equity. Dennis just did that with his sponsors. Mr. Negotiator Dennis there.
Hey, Ryan, this is Amanda. I just wanted to make a quick comment on the benefits of being conservative in your underwriting. Keep track of the different ways that you are conservative in your underwriting, and those are all selling points to your investors on the front end, because that's one of the things they're going to be looking for, is that you were very conservative in your assumptions. And I'd even hold some stuff back that you don't tell them about up front, because then when they're questioning you on the back end, you can show them some additional ways that you were conservative, and it will help to give your investors a comfort level.
I love I love that, man. That is spot on. Those are a lot of questions that you'll get from investors, So, and they appreciate if you're conservative. I mean, a lot of them appreciate that you're conservative. I see a lot of operators. I mean, I just saw the other day someone offered 28%, annual returns. It was like a 16% cash on cash. You got to remember, guys, if you don't hit those, it just makes you look worse. It does you no good for putting higher numbers in there. I mean, I could underwrite a deal extremely high. Like this deal right here, it could be underwritten at 26%, but we took it down to 21%. So, we want to make sure that investors get their expected return that we tell them. Under promise, over deliver. Frankie, I think we have two more questions. COVID reserves included in cap reserves. No, those are two separate reserves. So capital reserves is referring to the $350 that you have. That's going to be taken out every year. And that typically gets paid with your mortgage. COVID reserves is going to be your 12 months principal and interest. That gets, we get that back. We can get it back as soon as 9 months, but really 12 months. And the criteria is, and I can send that out to you guys. We can email it out with what the requirements are. There's a huge article on it. But, after 9 months, depending on your track record, if you have multiple properties with Fannie or Freddie, you can get it back. And typically is over 80%, and then a certain debt coverage ratio. So that number is different. Zach will show it here in the underwriting data where that's at, Frankie, for you. And then the last question is, once you get experience, this is an awesome question by Jose. Once you get experience and you don't need a guarantor, do you take that amount off or you keep it for yourself? No, we guarantee all of our own deals and we put that 1%, we keep that 1% on always. So we actually just took a 6% acquisition fee, or was combined 5% acquisition fee and 1% guarantor fee. So nope, you still put that in. Your investors will always know that's for you just signing on the loan. So awesome. All right, Zach, I'm glad you made it back. All right.
I'm alive, guys. I'm alive.
All right, perfect.
Cool. So we left off kind of here at the end of the input page. So let's move on to the value add tab. So this is the new tab that I've added with revamping this template. So we'll just dive into each section on this. So unit upgrades and below market rent. So to kind of go over this, average premium for below market rent. So this is if you go into a property and without doing any work, the units are $50 to $100 below market rent. This is where you can input the number here for up, just raising rents based off the market. And then the rent premium for renovated units. That is, if you're going to go into a property and you can renovate and increase, $100 more, like let's say $75 over that $100 below market rent. That's another $75. So $100 here and then $75 more here as well. But let's actually go through the OM and see what that value actually is. So let me pull up the OM real quick so we can look at it. All right, so hopefully you guys can see this. So here we have their value add, what they kind of provided us, that information. So they said we could enhance interior unit upgrades up to $100 of monthly premium. So that's for renovating them. So we're going to Move that to the side. So $100. So not 75. We're gonna do $100. I'm just gonna take the market rent out for now. Let me check and see how many units. So it says on the next page. I'll show you guys this again. On the next page, it showed that 168 units need to be renovated. So we're going to put that in. So out of the 224, that is.
Hey Zach, if you need me, I need to take a little 5-minute, or like a 2-minute break. The little boy's going crazy. I gotta calm him down, guys. Say electronics is not his favorite thing. I gotta get it set up quick.
All right, sounds good. So this would be probably 66 units that have, no, that's wrong, 56 units that have been renovated already. And so that leaves us with 68 units that need to be renovated. And so we'll go through here. We're not going to be able to renovate all 168 units in the first year. We're going to break that up into probably 3 years. And I'm just going to say we're going to break it up into thirds. We're going to do a third of them each year. And then that what goes with $100 plus the 33% of that 168 units in year one. That's the value we're going to add. And then we're going to add another $66,000 year two, and then another $66,000 year three to our gross potential rent or our gross scheduled rent as well. And a question for Megan, those numbers will not auto-populate based on the number of units you put in already. Megan, can you clarify that question?
So you're putting in the total number of units, the 224. So if you drop in 56 units, it won't auto-populate the next number for you?
This number down here?
Yeah.
It auto-populates to 168.
Okay.
Yep, it auto-populates. So if I take that out, it's going to go back to the 224, and that's going to use there. So,
okay, super.
Yep. Awesome. And so that's what, how this is used. If we do have, of the 56, let's say of those 56 that they're still below market rent. So I'm going to put those 56 here and say we could raise, $50 on those units. And we're going to do 50 of them year one, and then the other 50 of them in year two. Oops. That didn't work, did it? There it goes. It was a little slow. All right. So that's with the unit upgrades. Then moving over, we're going to skip other income for the moment and RUBS. We're going to go over the capital improvements. Because this number, once we input this number, these other numbers will populate. So it's waiting for this capital improvements number. Even if we put $1 in, and then it'll populate, but it needs this number to help calculate the numbers. So it said it was about $5,000. I'm going to put maybe $5,500 for those 168 units. And now our numbers are being returned for us, and we can see that. And right now it does not look great, as you can tell. But we'll keep working through this, and then hopefully those numbers will turn up better. So going back to other income, so they provided different income opportunities for us. Let me bring back the OM. So they also said that we could do a water conservation program. We could also lease out washer and dryers. So let's do that one first. So if we lease out washer and dryers, we zoom in so we can see this. They're leasing washer and dryers set to residents. They're saying 45 of the units can be done. It's going to cost us $1,200 per unit, and we can charge a $40 premium. So let's go ahead and use those numbers. So I'm going to put over in the capital improvements, washer and dryer leasing. We're going to do 45 of them, and it's going to cost us $1,200 per unit. And then over in the other income, I'm going to put the same thing, washer and dryer leasing to residents. We're not going to do all 45 first year. Let's maybe just stick to 20, and we're going to do it for $40. Then in year two, we're going to do the rest of them. Leasing to residents. We're going to do 25, and we're going to do 40 of them. So here, when we're kind of splitting up year one, year two, when you put anything in year one, this is going to keep carrying over to the next year. So you don't have to re-input it in year two and re-input it in year three. It's once you put it in, it's going to always be there, and it's going to continue throughout the whole process. All right, let me see any questions. Awesome. Great question from Christian. When thinking about renovations, do you want to leave meat on the bone when you sell? Yes, that's a great question. And definitely, you do want to leave meat on the bone. So most of the time, you don't want to renovate every single unit. So in that instance, we could go back and put down and maybe I'll leave 168 just for an extra cushion, but maybe we'll not do 160 units. So we'll lessen this down to maybe just 30% year one, another 30% year two, and maybe just drop down to 20. So that's definitely something to pay attention to as well, because you don't want to make the property perfect. You want to leave a little meat on the bone for the next investors that come along and buy the property, because it's a little incentive for them to raise the value as well and have a better return for them.
Hey, Zach.
Yes.
I'm sorry. If those numbers are carrying over, wouldn't your total at the end of year two be higher than that?
Yes. Here it's not going to show that, but it's in another part of the spreadsheet. It does calculate it into it.
Okay.
But yeah, this is just total for year two, total for year one. However, they're being incorporated into the spreadsheet on the back end in the calculations. Good question. Awesome. So to keep going with this value add, let's see what other opportunities they have. They said install backyards. So let's look at that. So we can install expanded backyards. They also said we can do 45 of those for $12.50 a unit and increase the premium $50. So we're going to go to install backyards on the CapEx. That's 45 of them for $12.50 a unit. Backyard premiums. And we're going to do, we can skip with the trend 20 year one, $50, and then 25 year two for $50.
Zach, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Do you always take those CapEx expenses verbatim, or do you verify those?
Definitely verify. I mean, all these numbers you want to verify. Don't always trust what a broker will tell you. It's all based on your own research. Going back to understanding market rent, I mean, that's based off your own research, doing that, using the property managers with the CMAs. The same thing with capital improvements and what you can actually raise, the premiums for them and charge for them. Definitely always verify that by contacting, different vendors and what they really think that price could be for sure. For this instance, we're just kind of going off what the OM is telling us, but
just a plug in. Yeah.
Yep, just a plug in. But you'll definitely want to go back and contact different companies, different vendors, and figure out how much they actually would charge.
And you would do that for this portion of it, or is that a due diligence?
First, I'd probably just do a quick underwriting of it, like we're doing, just kind of input the numbers. If the deal looks good, then I would start verifying that. Start contacting after you do your quick underwriting of it.
That would be before an LOI, right? Not.
Yes. Yes, before. It would be good to have an understanding of actually how much it would cost. Yeah. And this is stuff that you can start doing now, if you know your markets where you're investing in, you can start contacting vendors and asking about these different value add opportunities. Start contacting them now and building those relationships, figuring out those costs. So then when you do underwrite deals, you know your numbers. You don't have to waste time verifying. So you can underwrite them quicker. And the broker says it's going to cost $12.50, but I talked to a vendor and he said he can for sure get it to me for $1,000. That's great. So do that, verify, or or it might cost more. So do your research, and you can start doing that research now, so you're better prepared moving forward.
Is a way to shortcut that research by calling property management companies and asking them who they would use?
Yeah, that's a great resource. Property management companies could be a really great resource. They have their probably their contractors they use and all that. So building that relationship with the property management company, they could probably provide you some good references, and they could probably provide you the costs. But if you want to even be more detailed and for sure on your numbers, reach out to those vendors as well. All right, good question. Jonas, has anyone ever added backyards? If so, what is your experience with this? I haven't, so I wouldn't be able to answer that. I don't know if Ryan has either. I think it's something that's kind of new. I don't know if, if Jay has any experience with actually adding the backyards, but
it is basically a Texas market. Basically, I want to say something very popular in Dallas market that's coming up. It's been for the past 1 year that's been becoming popular. Because a lot of people have pets or kids, and if they have even if a little bit of a small backyard, they like to have it because they can leave their pets and kids in the backyard to play. It doesn't cost us much. Installing backyards.
How do they typically set those up? Because it seems like it'd be a little bit of a maintenance issue if there's a lawn or something out there. Is there a gate where lawn maintenance can get in and manicure it or whatever?
So that lawn is actually would be upkept by you, not the apartment complex. So you'll have, like, if you have a backyard, like if you have back doors and there's a little bit of land or a garden behind it, so they'll put a wooden, fence around it, and that's your area. Basically, that's about it. The 1,200 is just that, pretty much, and you can charge a premium of it. I have seen that premium go up to even $200 in A class assets, and B's is usually 100 to 125, depending on where they are at. But that's very kind of desired nowadays in the Dallas market. So wherever we can and there's a space, we try to install them because that's a good premium that comes in year after year.
That would probably reduce your lawn maintenance costs as well, because the tenant would become responsible.
It definitely does, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's definitely something new I've started to notice for sure is the backyards, which is, I think, a great option.
Hey, Jay, do you include in that, if it's visible to the rest of the tenants, do you, include, in the lease or the rules, that if the tenant doesn't keep up or maintain it, that lowers the value of your property, potentially rents, how do you control that side of it?
It is part of the lease where they do have a backyard or a front yard that they have to upkeep it and not have clutter around and whatnot. We put it in the lease agreement itself so they know exactly, because it doesn't mean that it's your area you can just have clutter, and a lot of people do that, have their own barbecue grill sometimes, which is a big no-no by the city, and then toys lying around or all that. So the clutter has to be cleaned out as soon as possible. Nobody's using it, and kept it clean.
Awesome, thank you.
No worries.
Awesome. So thanks for that, Jay. And then, so we'll keep moving with this. The next one of the items they had was water conservation program. So I want to touch on this one because this was kind of brought up with Brett earlier. Being able to reduce the cost of the water bill. This is one to help reduce it for you, and then also help reduce the bill for your tenants. So it's saying that we can do all the units, and it's going to cost us about $500 a unit, and then we can also we can charge a premium for those units. But let me dive in deeper to this. Let's see, water conservation program. So down at the bottom, I'll zoom into this. So it's showing we can save more than $125,000 annually on this, for implementing this low flow toilets and shower heads and all that. So I think that's what they mean by the $48. Oh, I just exited that. Whoops. But I think that's what they mean by the $48 for premiums. So a way to do this, to calculate it out, is so water conservation for all the units. It's going to cost $500.
Hey, Zach.
Yes.
For an issue like this, I know in Denver there were some water districts where if you did a water conservation, program in your own house or whatever, you could get reimbursed for the cost of like the toilets or the shower heads or whatever. Do you input that cost savings here, or is that like a nice surprise for your investors? Surprise, we got this money back.
For like reimbursement?
Mm-hmm. Like if you get reimbursed by whoever is over the water in that area for the cost, say you buy new toilets for every unit and the cost of the toilet's $100, but then once you install them, you turn in your paperwork and you get reimbursed for that amount. Do you input that cost savings up front on this template, or is that just something that it's like a under promise over deliver to where you get that money back?
I mean, what would you think? What would
I think it'd be a nice surprise
Yeah.
for your investors down the road, but is that being dishonest then in your initial underwriting?
You know what we should do is on this, we should have a class. Sorry, this is where I'm back now, guys. I would turn my video on, but I'm shoving wings down my mouth right now to eat. So anyway, I'll tell you this is Jay Dura is one of our coaches. He's great on the water conservation stuff. Maybe what we do is we teach a class on this because it is an important topic right now. To your point, Megan, we can actually add in, get credit back from certain cities and stuff like that. So we may want to take a look at that. There are cases like in Texas where you've got it. There's a lot of companies out there that will save you money. They'll essentially pay for all the product up front, but they charge you a percent of savings. But you're stuck into a contract for 5 to 7 years. So if you assume it, let's say you hit your goals in 3 years, you could be stuck with that service contract, or you have to buy it. You have to buy it out. So we purchased a property about a year ago and we had to buy out that service contract. It was part of the seller wouldn't budge on that. So you have to look at that. So it may make more sense to build it into your capital improvement budget, just to do it yourself and save the money, because then all of a sudden your expenses go down too, right? So, but if you're getting a kickback from the city or a credit back, I always say, man, it's better to do what you just said, to give more of a distribution to your investors, or maybe put it into your capital improvement budget to save to pay out distributions. So, or, I always say save it for future dates. Jay and I have talked about this a lot lately. Save stuff for future dates to pay out distributions in case, like, one quarter's tough and you don't hit your marks. You have that kind of extra money in there. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that's great. We could definitely do that for another day, is going deeper into, water conservation and other value add opportunities as well, that we can get into the details on those. So going with that, we have the CapEx spend for that. And then I'm just going to, in the future, I might add a section where we can reduce the utility bill. But for now, I'm just going to add it to the other income side of it, because then it'll kind of cancel out our utility bill, if that makes sense. So it's a roundabout way to do it. In the future, I might have added a section in here for, utility or water conservation program, and we can do it that way. But for now, it's just, we got to do it through the other income. So we'll do water. And this is one of those things that you kind of want to do like right off the bat, if we can start saving expenses. So I think it said it was about $48 a door. So yeah, about $125,000 we save, which is great. If you can do that first thing when you own it and reduce that cost, that's going to really help you right off the bat. And then the last one they have is reserved parking that they put in here. So I'll throw this over. They said 75 parking spots. You can implement a reserve parking for, it's going to cost you $20, but you can get $25 out of it. And you don't have to implement all these, because I would say that one, there's not a big return on it, but if it's something you want to implement, you can. You don't have to. Now, if you want to add to year one more than 3, just highlight all 3 of these, hit insert. Actually, wait, let's do this. Highlight all of this, everything that's under other income, that whole row, and hit insert, shift cells down, and it's going to give you another one. Come over to this cell. It doesn't have the equation in it, so we got to go to the cell above it and drag it down. Or a shortcut is hit Control D. Whoops, it's not going to work. Control D, and it's going to paste that formula in there for you too. And then we're going to insert right here, reserved parking. And we're going to do, let's see, there's 4, we can do 75 units. Maybe year one, we just kind of stick to 25. And then maybe year 2, we bump it up and we do 50 of them. And I come over here and I got to add it over here too. For 75 units, it's going to cost us 20. Awesome. So things are getting a little bit better up here at the top. Still not great, but we'll just keep looking at other opportunities to add to this. Let's see. So RUBS, this is where we can look and see if we can implement more RUBS if they haven't. This shows us what they've already implemented, a 72% RUBS of the utility bill, which is really good. So with that, analyzing that is understanding, can we actually increase that a little bit more, or is that kind of set? I would think, because we're going to reduce utilities by $129,000, that we probably don't have any more room to implement RUBS on this. So I'd kind of cap it right there and not add to it. However, if they didn't have any RUBS and we thought we could implement it, make sure you don't ever go over 80% of the utility bill. And so that's basically the value add tab. And now we're kind of at the point where we want to, start figuring out how we can make these numbers work for sure. So to do that, we can go back to the input tab and we can look at, we can play with the mortgage information here. And we can, think, well, what if we do interest only for 3 years? So we put in 36 months and let's watch those numbers. Cash and cash increased. So we'll go back so we can watch it again. And then annual rate, didn't change a whole lot, but it did decrease just a little bit. And that's because of less pay down to the debt.
Zach, let me help you here a little bit.
Yes.
So I've been to the property and I researched the competition around it. So turns out the property didn't have any covered parking where the competitors had. So I know the OM says about reserve parking, but they didn't do their research really well when it comes to competition. So we included cover charging for those 430 units because they didn't have any covered parking, and the residents were asking for covered parking, and that's $40 per month. For washer dryers, there were 130 units that had the connections. You can actually put 400 units for leasing out for 40 per month. These two things that
100 units, is that what you said?
Pardon me?
How many units did you say for the washer and dryer?
130 units, but you can take 400 units. And parking as well, because it's 224 units, you can at least do 100 parking.
Okay.
Covered parking for $40. Usually the going rate is $50, but we are underpaid for $40.
How many would you do in year one?
I would take the reserve 25 off and just make it covered parking over there.
Okay. And you said $40?
$40, yeah. And I did it for 100 units. So I mean, you're having for 75 units here. That's fine too. Yeah, and that would be $40.
Oh, yep, $40 on there. Yeah. Awesome. How much did it cost to install?
So that I got two quotes, $1,000 for just the shed and whatnot. If you wanted to include a light in there, $1,250. So there are two options you wanted to go. You can have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sweet. Was there anything else? Any other value add opportunities?
Not that I can think of.
All right. This is good. Awesome. So that helped a little bit. Helped our cash on cash and our return. Let's go back. Interest rate wise, Jay, what did the interest rate? What was like a quote you got on this property?
Well, I was gonna go for the bridge loan.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah, we got the quote from Marcus and Milchap, and that was actually a good one. Let me open up here.
And so, guys, for this template, it's not able to do a bridge loan. That's a more advanced template that I'm working on. And just to explain a bridge loan a little bit, usually you have to get a bridge loan when the debt service coverage ratio doesn't meet the standard financing. So it's usually when it's below 1.2 or below 1. Usually you have to get a bridge loan because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac won't lend to that property because of the performance of it. And so the bridge loan is kind of temporary, which is kind of usually 2 to 3 years, and it's interest only payments. And then after those 2-3 years, if you plan on holding it for 5 years, you refinance into agency debt based on the performance of the property at that moment. And sometimes that's a really good thing, and then other times it's not great because when you do refinance, you refinance into a larger mortgage amount than you would have when you first acquired it because of how much value added to the property. So then your debt payment is drastically larger. So there's some pros and cons to bridge debt. But yeah, that's something that we can definitely dive into another day for sure.
Hey, Jack.
Yes.
Just when we're thinking about insurance and I'm looking at the value adds that you're considering doing, I would think that if you're considering doing other structural ads like that you would want to figure out all of those before you shop your insurance. Does that make sense or no?
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I think that's something you'll want to definitely have that in mind when you are shopping for insurance for sure.
Hey,
Jay,
Seth, real quick,
go for it.
Question. How did you say we got that cap rate at resale value? How did we get that?
The cap rate resale, that is based off of your market cap rate when you do purchase the property. So market cap rate when we purchased was 5.5%. We're planning on holding it for 5 years. So we add, the rule of thumb is 10 basis points to that each year that we hold it. So that's how we came up with a 6% cap rate.
Got it. Thank you.
Of course. And along those lines, there's a lot of properties that are selling for more than the cap rate. So they're selling, let's say the cap rate is 5.5, but it's selling for a 4.5 cap. which is happening a lot right now. You don't want to base your resale off of the purchase cap rate. You want to sell it off the market cap rate. So be aware of that. This number over here that does the suggested exit cap rate goes off the purchase cap rate because that's just hoping that you're buying the property at market cap rate. So be aware of that when it does suggest the exit cap rate. You need to understand what your market cap rate is at the time. Jay, were you able to find that interest rate?
Yeah, that was 85% LTC, and the interest rate was 4.1.
4.1. Okay, so we'll leave this at 4.
That
and
was 85% LTC, loan to cost.
85%. Wow.
So yeah, so what he's going over here, guys, right here is an LTC and LTV. There's two different ways, right? There's loan to value and loan to cost. When you're referring to a bridge loan, it's going to be loan to cost. All right, have we gone over that yet, Zach?
Nope.
So we don't confuse you guys. This is a part that as you're thinking about doing a bridge loan, let's say that maybe the occupancy or collections aren't where they need to be, debt coverage ratios maybe under 1.25. We may have to explore doing a bridge loan. Your lender will tell you on that, if you're going to have to do a bridge. So loan to cost, what does that mean? It means we can build in a lot of the closing costs and capital improvement budget into the loan, right? So it may be a higher interest rate. So in this case, it's 4.1, but we can add an additional 10%, right? Which is going to reflect our closing costs into the loan. So you don't have to raise for capital improvement budget. You've got like property tax reserves. Anything associated with closing costs would be built into the loan amount. So when you hear, if you were confused on loan to cost, that's what LTC is. And we'll actually, in the new underwriting on the path, we'll actually have the definitions of the difference between loan to cost and loan to value.
Awesome. So yes.
What did you take for, because I didn't see that part of your underwriting. I was doing something.
What was that?
The premium for new units.
So I just did $100.
Okay. So just to talk, I know you're being very conservative here. See, property, when I did the market research, the rents were already below $200 compared to competitors. You can do this accordingly how you do it. But and the premium was for the renovated units was, well, it was around 170. I took 120. But yeah,
awesome.
Significantly under market rent.
So okay, so the premiums were $120 on top of the 200. Is that correct?
Yes.
So okay, so for this purposes, guys, I'm going to put 320. Awesome. So this 320 is including this market rent. And the reason why I did that was because the way I have it calculated, set up at the moment, is it's only going to calculate these 56 units down here that are below market rent. And then it's going to calculate the ones that need to be renovated is 168. So that's why I did it this way. You can do it the other way where you put 120 right here. And then you include all units are $200 below market rent. So you include 224 at the bottom. And that will change it. We'll probably divide this up into different years. Just because that's a lot to do right off the bat. Let's play conservative and I'll just do 10 right here. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. There's a couple ways to approach that. But this way, the units brought up to market rent. This one is including, we're going to do 40%. Let's do 40%, which means it's going to include this 30% that we're going to renovate, and then an extra 10% basically off that 56. 10% of the 224, that's going to take it out of those 56 units. So might be a little confusing, but if you have questions on that moving forward, I definitely can walk through that again with you. But doing that, so that's really important that, Jay, he did his own research. He figured out actually how far below they are on based off market rent and what the premiums they could achieve. And so that's really, go for it, Jay.
I'll add on to that as well, because so sometimes you do see this difference in rents that is below 200 or 300 or even 400 below market rent, but you'll have to see which market is it in. This property was in one of very upcoming areas, very nice areas. where people were moving to, where with new malls and everything. So it's like we're a really great area where you can actually push these rents and bring it up. Sometimes you cannot. You sometimes when they say, oh, it's below market rent, $300, you really have to see their surroundings and the location it's in. You might not be able to push it because then people start moving out and you'll have vacancy issues. So you really have to, when you go for your property tour, you really have to go around the property and see which location it is, and if you don't really know the market. So to kind of see how much rent improvements or rent increase can you push, or how much premium can you push when you go in.
Definitely. Thanks, Jay. Because that's a really important part of this. As we were looking at the OM, it was $100, but from Jay's research, there's a lot more value to add here, which is a big difference. As you can see at the numbers now, our year one cap rates up to over 6%, and then our annual cash on cash is 10%, which is great. Our annual return is all the way up to 16%, and then these are down in the single digits. So this is great to see this potential that this property has, and it's from doing market research. He did his own market research and he figured out what could actually be achieved on this.
Hey, Zach, quick question. What would you consider kind of your cutoff point for annual rate of return? I know we're targeting 18%. And I know it turns off of green once we get, I think, below 18%, but what's your realistic, no, that's going to be too low.
Mine's once it goes past 16, once it gets lower than 16%, that's when I think that's probably not ideal to keep looking further. I don't know if Ryan has a different approach to that, but that's kind of what I see is once you kind of dip below 16%, it's based off your investors too, kind of what your investors are really want and kind of what you want to provide your investors.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty safe analysis. Yeah, I think 16. I think MSCP's is 18%. But it's because our portfolio we're averaging 36% returns right now, and so we're pretty cautious of what we put into it. But like Zach said, depending on what your investors' returns are, I mean, like a lot of you guys on this call right now that invest, I mean, 16% is not bad right now. And so you just have to know your investor base and what they're interested in. But like on this deal, there's always ways to bump it up too. It's getting a quick measure. Like Jay brought up a point. The exit, even though that's the rule of thumb on the exit cap rate is 10 basis points. Now 10 basis points, reflects 0.1%. I think Zach, you went over that, right? What a basis point represents?
No, I probably didn't go into detail on that.
So 10 basis points is 0.1%. So if you remember, if your cap rate is 5.5 and you're holding it for 5 years, we're going to raise 0.1 for every year. So we're going to raise it 0.5 altogether. So your exit would be 6. So I tell you I remember at first people are basis points. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? That was long ago, but anyway, I learned that pretty quick. So, and it's just, you'll hear a lot of lenders talk about the treasury and where they're at and 250 basis points. And they're 50 points above LIBOR right now. So you don't really have to know all that stuff. The lender, just tell the lender, what's the interest rate? That's all you have to say. I don't care about the interest rate. Just tell me the interest rate. So a lot of it, like on this property, it's in Las Colinas. This isn't a killer area. So your cap rate, you could probably be a little bit more aggressive in this market and maybe go up like 0.3. So playing around with your exit cap rate on here, if you changed it really quick to, if you went down 0.2, there you go. Let's see what that changes it to. See how it raises it just a little bit?
You're right there. You're almost at 18 at that point.
Realistically, it would sell for, I want to say 5.4 or 5.5, and that also being conservative, to be honest, in that area.
Yeah. So a lot of it is knowing your market, right? And once again, it goes back to the broker. Hey, or look at historical cap rates in the sale of the property. You can look at that as well. And so, knowing your market, this is why like a lot of people say, how many markets should I focus on at once? Amanda just said a week or 2 weeks ago, 2, right? And this is the exact reason. Imagine going into 5, 6, 7 different markets. You have to know all of this stuff. So you know your exit cap rates and your cap rates in specific markets if you just stay there. So I would agree with you, Jay, on this property. It would probably sell at a 5.5, especially knowing the area. It's up and coming, knowing what's coming into those markets. 5.5 would probably be pretty conservative on this.
I don't mind whatever she picks up. It's fine.
And so hopefully
sorry about that, Zach. Yeah, so what I would say is ask Zach on that. If you're confused on exit caps, make sure you ask us. That is one thing that you do not want to guess on. So, for example, take this cap rate really quick, Zach. Take it up to 6.5%. Look at what that just does to the total return, right? I mean, think about you make a mistake because you're trying to be aggressive and trying to make these numbers work, right? You go to say, oh, yeah, great. The annual cash on cash is decent. It's 10.7%. But when you just told your investors they're going to make 18 to 20 and you were incorrect on an exit cap rate, guess what? Yeah, they made decent cash flow, but they didn't get that 100% return or that 95% return you told them. Do you think after you sell the property, they're going to reinvest with you? Nope. So knowing an exit cap rate, if you ever have questions, send a message to Zach. You can send it to me. So you can help you out with that exit cap rate. It's really, really important to know these.
Okay, so let me call. So those only those.
Exactly.
To piggyback on what Ryan just said about limiting your market selection in the beginning when you're first starting out, the only caveat that I would have to that, if you really are thinking about getting into multiple markets, is having good partners on the ground that have already done all of this market research and can back up their numbers and their assumptions. And so that's super important. So as we talk about going through the path and not skipping steps, you do not want to skip that market analysis.
Definitely, that's critical. It's one of the most important parts to analyze a deal. I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, or the last underwriting call we did. Was one student brought me a deal. He didn't have any real market research on it. He had more generic market research, and the deal looked like it could be a decent deal. And then another student brought me the deal with some market research, and it was in a horrible area. And at that point, you knew you weren't going to be able to add value to that property. It was not going to sell at a higher value, honestly. And so that it kills the deal, and it's based on the market. So it could have been a lot of wasted time there with analyzing a deal, just because it's a deal, but you didn't understand the market. So definitely really important on that. All right, so we've kind of we've inputted the numbers, we've added some value add opportunities, we've kind of worked with the numbers a little bit. I'll show you here now with this interest only. Now that we have some positive, some good returns. That's if we took that interest only out. Mainly your cash on cash hurts from it. That's the main part of it. Your return will hurt a little bit, your total return, but it's mainly your cash on cash. And that also helps. Here, I'll show you, I'll scroll over. I'll show you your debt coverage service ratio. So watch that number, 1.24. I'll add in 36 months, and that goes up to 1.78. So even if I change it to a year, I believe it stays at 1.78. Yep. So interest only can be pretty beneficial when acquiring properties. So that's mainly, that's kind of working with the numbers. We've been at this for quite a while. I don't know if Ryan, do we want to keep, diving in, or do you guys all want to stay on and keep diving and go through the other tabs, or do we want to kind of cover this, in a week or so? What do you guys want to do?
So just speaking for me and my beautiful bride, as much as I love this and think this is highly valued, if I don't find some food pretty soon, I'm going to have to start eating things that I have sitting on my desk. So
that's right. I know how you feel.
Just my.
So, yes. Okay. Dennis asked a good question. We'll cover this one because I think this was brought up, was the principal and interest as part of CapEx. So this one's really important. I'll cover this, and then we'll, if there's any other questions, you guys can ask them. If not, we'll continue with this deal in like a week or so.
So what we can do too, Zach, after you answer that, what we can do, guys, is I can work with Amanda and use Zach on this, but we can do an underwriting series and break them into pieces. So we can go into input and value add. We can go to rent unit mix and do a video on that, underwriting data, the yearly projections. So we can break them apart for you guys and just do a series. So as you guys go through that, you can see exactly, if you have a question on the yearly projection, you can just go straight into that video. So we can do that, and then we'll just put it into the underwriting and the path.
Yep, that's definitely a part of my plan. Is I'm working on recording some videos for you guys that kind of breaks this all up in little sections, little pieces. Hopefully we can get that in the next week or so. But yeah, definitely.
This video will be uploaded by Monday evening for sure. We'll have Rebecca jump on it, and it'll get uploaded to the path under the advanced underwriting tab, or no, the advanced events tabs is where it'll be located.
Hey Brett, I don't know about you. I'm helping teach the class, and I went and got wings, man. Just go pop them in the microwave and eat, man. All right, go for it, Zach. We can answer this.
So this question is pretty good from Dennis, is the principal and interest. So I'll show you guys right now, Ryan, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding right now, lenders are requiring some principal and interest cushion to have at least the first year. So you have to have some principal and interest kind of in your back pocket, just for any kind of emergency situation. It's what the lenders want right now. I think it's mainly due to COVID. So that's in our calculations right now. So year one principal and interest, $988,000 for this property that we basically have to have in reserves. And so I think I'm going to start adding this to the template. But year one principal and interest, I have it right here. This essentially, if things go well, after a year, you can get this money back to be able to use either for distributions or for CapEx spend. So this is actually pretty important because this can be accounted for to use for CapEx spend in the future, or you can just hold on to it for reserves, or distribute it back to your investors for a little bonus for them. I know of working with Dennis on some of his deals, we've used the principal and interest for some of the CapEx spend for renovating the units that we do probably year 2 or so. So we are accounting to use some of that money for CapEx, so that will kind of reduce some of our unit upgrade. We'll reduce some of that and apply some of year 1 principal and interest for that. So that helps. So you don't have to raise as much money up front. Hopefully that answers that. But yeah, I mean, that was what I wanted to answer. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask them. And then we will continue to do some more videos and Zoom calls, and we'll dive into all these other beautiful tabs down here, and we can dive into each aspect of it so you guys can become experts in analyzing deals and looking through these tabs and understanding, the importance of each one. Especially this part, I really look at this part a lot. And in the returns page, I pay attention to as well. But we can definitely cover that in the future.
Yeah, let's set up some more. Let's go over some questions really quick, and then we'll call it a day, guys. I hope that helps, guys. We originally were going to do 2 advanced underwriting classes a year. What you guys asked for, man, we really tried to do. We also have great coaches that give good feedback based on communication they've had. And so we want to do more underwriting, like I said at the very beginning. Every other week we want to do little tidbits. So if you guys have anything you want us to go over during those times, let us know. If you have a deal that you underwrote, maybe it didn't work out, we can get on and say why it didn't work out or how to make it work if we can. So you can always submit those over to us.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it, Jason.
So one of the things as I look through this analysis is, I guess what I'm trying to figure out from, when performing steps 2 and 3, the income and expenses analysis is, I noticed like the NOIs are different from the seller's standpoint and our standpoint. And I guess the big question is that if I see that the seller's NOI calculation is different from the NOI that I calculate, for example, should I be alarmed by that?
No, it's one of the things, Jason, is a lot of times properties that we see are being mismanaged, and a mismanagement is going to have an effect on the NOI. We always go everything based off the rule of thumb. So if we're going off the rule of thumb, we know exactly kind of where we can get the NOI at. Now, guys, the rule of thumb sometimes changes per market. And so we have to know that. Is there, the question you guys may ask is, where's a tool to identify that? A lot of it is experience. The other part is knowing a property management company, identifying it through them. But yeah, your NOIs are never going to match up, Jason. They're always going to be different. And it's just going to be based off their numbers and our numbers and how we usually run our properties. But we run our properties extremely conservative. So I would say just go off of that. But your NOIs will always be a different number.
Okay.
All right, Doug, you asked a great question. Are lenders requiring 1-year insurance, 1-year P&I, CapEx, and 1-year expenses? All right, so your CapEx is going to be built into that 1-year P&I. Essentially, that covers your debt service over a year. And, depending on the market, they may require additional, may require insurance. The Texas market's a little bit different. So, 1-year expense, they're not going to require the 1-year expense. Typically, what the expenses you build in 2 months of expenses. That's typically what your property management company will want in their reserves or in their operating accounts. Curtis, awesome question, dude. Bonus depreciation, man. Bonus depreciation comes down to how much money we spend in the first year. We get up to $1 million that we can write off. Now, I don't want you to confuse bonus depreciation with cost segregation. Those are 2 different things. We actually, on one of our Topic Tuesdays, are going to have someone that comes on and talks about bonus depreciation. We'll have a CPA come on and do that and talk about cost segregation. We actually may have, oh my gosh, I can't remember. I can't believe I forgot his name. Oh my gosh, he's all over LinkedIn.
Jonas.
We just did a podcast. Jonas. Jonas Weiss. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot his name. I see him all kinds of different networking things. And so Jonas, man, we may have him come on and talk about bonus depreciation and cost segregation. So yeah, we can definitely write up to $1 million on bigger properties, stuff that has more CapEx. It definitely affects. It doesn't affect your numbers. It affects more the returns or the amount of money that your investors keep in their pocket. So, but we'll have someone on and go over that for you guys. It's definitely a great topic.
And this question from Brendan: If our NOI is lower than the seller's actual, should we calculate the purchase price from our NOI and cap rate or theirs? When looking at a spreadsheet and you're basing off sellers and ours, you base it off the sellers NOI. That's where the purchase price is. Our numbers are based on what we think we can achieve with the property in 1 year of owning it. But the purchase price is based off how the property is performing and the market rate at that time.
Need a referral to CPA. We can throw you out some referrals, Megan, on that. Oh, Vic Verdi Dennis. Yeah, Vic Verdi's great. He's who we use, but-
I'm actually grabbing his information right now. I'll send it over to you, Megan.
Yeah, so for a couple people have asked, to get a hold of me. I want to talk to every single one of you guys. I'm extremely busy, but here's what I typically do. I have you go through Jackson, so you can shoot Jackson an email. He knows my schedule, and so he can either answer those questions for you, get you with the right coach, or get you over to me for sure.
Reach out for sure. For sure. If it's not Ryan, I'll get you to one of the other coaches for sure. For sure.
Look, I have 3 of the 4 over the energy line, right?
Is it Anand? Is that right? We need more classes like this. Yes, we plan on doing more. So we're going to do these classes every other week. So we'll definitely give that to you for sure. You don't want to hear from Vic, Kimber. Vic's an ass. He's from New Jersey, and if you're from New Jersey, I apologize. He is straight up New Jersey. I love him to death. He saves us a ton of money, but I would never have him on one of these. Amanda, you're laughing because you know exactly what I'm talking about. Listen, we refer a lot of people to Vic, but he is very direct.
100%. And he asks me for money every time I call him, even when I've already paid him. But man, he's worth it. He's so worth it.
He has saved us a ton of money.
Come on, you got to pay to dance.
You got to pay to dance. You got to pay to dance. That's right.
You got to pay what people are worth,
All right, guys. Hey, it looks like that. I didn't get any notification about this class. So we post everything, guys. When we have classes like this, we post it onto the Facebook page, and then Topic Tuesdays and our Thursday classes are posted to Facebook as well. So, all right, guys. Well, hey, it was awesome to have you guys on here. Jackson, you still on?
Did you?
Awesome. Looks like his Zoom crashed. It looks like so. Hey guys, we have awesome.
His Zoom crashed.
We have Zach, who underwrites a lot of deals. You can see he's extremely informative, knows what he's talking about. So, here's the thing, guys. Underwriting is.
Sorry, guys. I'm not really sure what happened. My Zoom crashed. But Megan, I will for sure send you over the Vic's contact information for sure.
Thank you.
Awesome, guys. And like I said, this will be uploaded to the path. With it, give us about a week, and we'll have that new underwriting tab up. It will have all topics on. So some of you have asked great questions. One of the questions you didn't ask is, what the difference between RUBS and sub-metering is. So I actually have an article coming out on that here soon. That'll all be put into the underwriting template. And so that should be coming out in the next week. Zach and I mean, this is our passion is underwriting, and so we will make sure that is the best tab on the path. Don't tell Tyler I said that. So.
Hey, if you guys give me a second, I'm posting Vic's contact info.
Hold
on.
I love Vic.
And if you want him to do last year's taxes, you better get your stuff to him like yesterday, because he is.
Oh, you know what? Dennis already posted it, Amanda.
Oh, awesome! Thank you.
All of his information. Hey, I just have to forewarn you. He's direct. He's super direct. So, all right, guys. Jackson, why don't you close this out, man?
You guys, the internet at this office has been spotty, so we're trying to get that upgraded. I super apologize. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today at this advanced webinar, this advanced underwriting webinar. Ryan and Zach, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Thanks to everybody that participated. Your guys' participation is what really makes these webinars great. So super appreciate y'all. Like I said, this will all be uploaded to the path by Monday evening. So by Tuesday, all this information that we went over will be ready to review. We super appreciate y'all. Please reach out if you guys have any questions. If you're trying to get in contact with any coach, please feel free to email. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Really quick, I do want to give a little shout out to Eric and Eric Chatterton and the Davenports, Brett and Megan. They're looking at a deal right now, guys. So I know they're going to need help. So Megan, did I just throw your hands up?
Awesome.
Okay. Hey, they're going to need some help, guys. Yeah, we're not going to talk about it on this group page. You need to reach out to them individually. If they want to throw their chat or email up here, they can. You can reach out to them on the Facebook page. But listen, there's a great opportunity. I'm sure that they would love your help, whether it's raising capital or doing asset management or whatever, guys. This is a team effort, and I'm sure they'd appreciate your help. So that's just a recent deal someone found. So make sure you reach out to those guys.
For sure, 100%. Thanks, Ryan. Congratulations, you guys, also on getting that deal. For sure, reach out if you guys need anything. Jackson at themultifamilymindset.com for anybody. If you guys ever have any questions or need anything, please feel free to reach out.